the mindset is that you have to kill your old self for your new self to be born, right? There's a quote from Game of Thrones where he's talking to Jon Snow and he says, you have to kill the boy so the man can be born, right? So that principle is that you literally kill your old self, old habits, old mindset, old drive, work ethic, etc., and you can rewrite your story, right? You can start a new chapter or a new story, a new character if you will, and you get to decide who that character is.
Welcome, Riz, here. It's great to have you here. Thank you for coming. It's great to have you here in Canary Islands. I really admired when I reached out and you told me you were coming and living on the same day. I was really not only surprised but also inspired by that. So
me too.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for coming, and it's great to connect. Looking forward to sharing your experience both on the trading and podcast space. You've been growing like crazy in the last months. And I believe, how was it? How was the growth? Like, was it exponential? Did it happen right away, or what was the process?
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me, first of all, and thank you for flying me out as well. Flew me out here, and we have to do it in a very quick succession. Come here. We got time for lunch, which was nice. Yeah. Nice setup here, nice backdrop. I don't know if the wind is coming onto the audio, so maybe I'll close the door soon. But yeah, it was absolutely. My pleasure to be here. In terms of the growth, it's been incredible. It's been incredible. It has been very gradual. I haven't been trying to grow on social media for 10 years, but I've been working for 10 years. I've been posting for 10 years, just generally for myself, like a form of journal. And I've always wanted to help people, and I always thought, the best way to do that was through words. So originally I used to have an old profile, and that profile I had from when I was like 15, 16ish, really? Around there, yeah. And I used to do like captions, a lot of quotes with captions, long form captions. And bearing in mind, I'm 15, 16, so I used to think, people, this will motivate people, this will help people. But the reality being, who's going to listen to a 15, 16-year-old, Yeah. And nobody, not really lived life, hasn't really got proper life experience, may have gone through some things, but no one else knows that, no one else knows that, so they won't, again, there's no reason to listen, really. So then eventually, as I got into the trading space and started to actually make content for the sake of trying to grow and have a bigger reach, but I was just making content for the sake of it, making like top 3 mindset hacks for traders, or top 3 mistakes that I made in my trading journey, stuff like that. And even though they're good and valuable for sure, because I never script anything, I never plan anything, that's all I'll think of. Okay, the title is top 3 tips. Here are the 3 tips. Nothing else is scripted. Right. It's just, okay, these are the 3 tips. Now I speak. So I've always been that way anyway. And don't get me wrong, in the beginning when I first started trying to be on camera and stuff like that, I would be very hesitant. I would overthink. But very, very quickly I just understood that there's no point overthinking, right? You can't be perfect. Like trying to get rid of every and R and little mistake, it's just not gonna. You're gonna be there for hours. I've met people where they sit there for hours to do like a 1-minute video, right? And it's just not. It's not efficient. It's not efficient. It's not worth it either, right? Just for that one video. So so I very quickly just kind of got used to just doing things. Just doing it, or however it is. Can you do it better? If it was really bad, of course, do it again. But 9 times out of 10, it's going to be fine, right? You got your message across. So even with those videos, they still had value. But then I moved on to, when I went on to Albert's podcast, Albert Burgess, and that's when I finally learned that you can hire studio spaces for podcasts. Before that, I thought I'm going to have to wait. I'm going to have to buy my own studio space, and then I'm going to have to buy my own equipment. So therefore, okay, let me wait until I have the tens of thousands to do that. But as soon as I learned that you didn't have to do that, which is my own fault really, I never even tried to Google it, I didn't, or even better, I could have just done it on a laptop or a webcam, and just start that way and move forward from there. So that was my own using excuses, to hold myself back. But once I had that no excuse now, because I learned this, it was literally a year ago yesterday, that I first went to a studio and filmed a podcast. And it's been incredible, ever since then, we just stayed consistent. I've learned how to be a better host, learn how to listen more, learn how to ask better questions, learn how to edit a trailer, learn how to do the titling, all these things are slowly, even to this day, I'm still learning how to be better. How can I do things better? How can I be better? So even though we've seen immense growth, it has been years of of sharpening the skills, you know,
Of course.
sharpening the skills and getting to the point where we are today, and even now still sharpening
Always.
those same skills, you know.
Always, absolutely. Did you see any similarities between, you know, growing as a trader and growing on social medias?
Yeah, it's a good question. Like, it's all the same stuff. It's consistency,
Right.
you know. It's being consistent in your actions. Like, you want consistent results in your trading. You want consistent results in the gym. You want
Yeah.
consistent results on your podcast. It's literally, you have to be consistent, right? So in terms of podcasting, it's of course, you know, if you're dedicating one episode a week, for example,
Yeah.
then you need to stick to one episode a week. If you're dedicating to a number of reels or trailers, you dedicate yourself to that.
True.
You know, if you dedicate yourself to having certain guests on and being on time and all of these different things, you need to stay consistent in your actions every single time. Same with the trading, as we know, right? To be consistent in trading, we have to stay consistent in our actions, turning up
100%.
on time, turning up and sticking to our plan consistently, right? Learning as well, sharpening our tools, still being the best. So just as we talked about podcasting there, you know, learning how to do the titles and editing. Same with trading.
Yeah.
Exact same thing. Like, you can't just get complacent and just stop. Doesn't mean you have to change your style all the time or change how you trade all the time, but market conditions change all the time, right? Not
Yeah.
every day, potentially not every week, but every few weeks, the market conditions will change from, say, ranging
Right.
to more volatile, right? And if you can't adapt with that and stay sharp, then you're going to have a tough time. Doesn't mean you won't be profitable, but you'll have large periods of time where you feel lost and confused and have the potential of going off tilt, going off plan. So yeah, really it's that consistency. And the other thing being that relentless nature, you know, something that I know you've had Mark Hutchinson on before, and that's something that he talked about on my podcast, which was that relentless energy, right? That relentless focus that you have every single day. And honestly, it's so important. It's so important. Like, the whole reason the podcast has grown, the trading has done well, and anything else that I've ever done is only when I've been extremely, extremely relentless in my energy and my sort of thought process towards it. I was going to close this door here.
Yeah. of course.
Just to save us. I get in trouble all the time on my podcast for, you know, if there's ever poor audio, right? They attack me. They attack me in the comments. They're like, "Come on, get a better." I'm dragging myself
Yeah.
here. But yeah,
You need to. Yeah. Nice.
I'm weak. The flight drained me out. It's the sun. I wasn't prepared. But no, yeah, I get it all the time, man. That's the thing. So, like, you know, it doesn't matter how good you are or how well you seem like you're doing on socials. You still have feedback, right?
Of course.
And it's very easy in the beginning. Like, the first feedback I would get, like negative or constructive feedback, was you need to let your guest speak, right? And at the beginning I was like, but it's my podcast, and, you know, it's a conversation. You know, you're meant to be just talking, right? It's like back and forth. But then I had to, like, put that aside and realize that, look, first it's the listener, right? It's the listener who's important. You're doing this for the listener. So, okay. And then on top of that, you have to realize that there actually it's true. Don't get me wrong, people might want to hear your story, but that's why you go on someone else's podcast to do that, right? When in reality, they're here to listen to your guest. So I had to put that to one side and realize, okay, I learned that. So now with the audio, it's the same thing. It's like a little common theme.
Yeah.
So, like, I've always, like, not wanted to interrupt people and say, hey, just put your mic here and there, you know, especially if it's their first ever podcast, because you don't want to, like, make them feel like they're doing something wrong or anything. But now I'm kind of having to be proactive and saying, hey, just move your mic a little bit closer or a little bit further away, just so the audio levels are good. So it's the little tedious things, you know. It's like trading, same thing, right? It's not a case where you will learn something in trading and suddenly your whole trading shifts, your whole journey becomes successful all of a sudden. It's literally the little tiny details that you probably don't even think are important, that when you add those tiny details together, it creates that masterpiece. You know, it's like a jigsaw puzzle, you know. If you're missing a few pieces, you can see the overall picture, but it's those few pieces that make the difference and complete it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have a mission? Which is your mission?
My mission in life, with the podcast and in life in general, they kind of go intertwined, which is to just help as many people as possible. I've always wanted to have an impact, and growing up, as I mentioned, I was doing it with captions, but I always wanted to help people. My essence was, like, I wanted to change the world. Now, it's obviously a big words and big statement, and as a kid, I thought it was possible to do just through, like, you know, words and speaking and doing public speaking and stuff like that. And as I grew up, it's still possible, of course, but as I grew up, I realized that you have to have something of value to give. You need to be of someone of value to give. So you need to go make something of yourself in some kind of way, and then obviously put yourself out there. So I still didn't know how that was. For ages, I just thought it was business. You just have to become rich and people then will respect you because you're rich. Plus, you'll be able to help people just because you've got money to be able to help them, right? Do charity work wherever it may be. So then the podcast side of things is the words, because obviously I know that we kind of stay within the trading space. There is plans to start to go outside, but so it's still correlated with trading, right? But essentially with the podcast, you can help change people's minds. You can help them feel inspired or motivated. You can help them to feel content. Even when that's why we mainly focus about the lows, in the trading journey. So we don't really we don't talk about technicals at all, really.
Yeah.
We might say like, what style you trade and stuff like that. But, we primarily focus on what was your journey. What struggles did you face? What hardship did you face? What losses did you face? Did you have mental health problems and stuff like that? And we discuss those things, because then when people realize that everyone is the same, everyone goes through stuff no matter how big they may seem, or maybe how unknown they are. Everyone's going through the exact same thing, going through the exact same process. So yeah, in terms of the mission, it is to just help as many people as possible, have as much of an impact. And in terms of changing the world, to bring it back like sort of to where the original goal came from, it's a case where I realized that all you have to do is help X number of people, right? It could be 100 people, 10 people, 1,000 people, right? And whatever the number, as long as you help those people will then help 10 people, right? And then that compound and knock-on effect leads to a much wider impact in the world, And whether the world actually changes or not, another thing I take note of is that if I change your reality, your world is changed. Does that make sense? So maybe I'm not changing every 8 billion people on the planet's world, but as long as I change your world, then the world has been changed in some sense,
Yeah, makes sense.
That's a very nice way to see it, and I never thought of that way. But actually, thinking about helping one people, and that one people is gonna help maybe 10 more, something like this is powerful.
Powerful, yeah.
Nice.
Well, we see it in trading, don't we?
Yeah.
Think about it. Like we teach. Let's say you teach a student, and 9 times out of 10. At some point, or one of those students will then end up teaching another 100 more students, right? So like my mentor Rip, for example, he has now to this day, and I joined him 3.5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago now, but he has like 150 in his group now. But I've obviously gone on to teach maybe 500 or 1,000 people just from like as an actual educator, let alone obviously the millions that we're touching on in terms of the podcast. But that reflects on him. That reflects on my mum, that reflects on my dad, that reflects on my wife. Like these people all have an impact on me. So therefore, I'm their legacy, and their impact on me then follows through into the podcast, into anyone I teach or interact with or help. Right? Same with you guys doing this. Like anyone who then watches this and then it improves their lives, anyone who's been your mentor or your parents or your siblings or any impact on your life, it's a knock-on effect always, 100%. And in trading, we see it directly because you see obviously an educator teaches a student, the student becomes another educator, teaches another 500 students, and it's a big network, and it all stems back. When done correctly, obviously we see a lot of times in the space that students might not pay homage to who their mentor is, which is a shame. I think it's a shame because at the end of the day, look, I get the whole competition side of things, but the reality is that how many courses did you buy in your trading journey? Like
I did buy many.
I bought like 5 to 10. I think I've never met a single person who's like, I bought one course.
Right.
Yeah. And if they did say that, 9 times out of 10 they're probably lying. And if they did do one course, fair play, that's great. But that's like an anomaly. That's like very random, very unique. Majority of people are going to buy multiple courses. It's known. It's absolutely fine. No problem with that. Obviously, course hopping is a different thing.
But
that's
another problem.
People should just pay homage. They should just pay. Like for me, for example, like as I said, I went onto Albert's podcast. That's how I found about the podcast studio. I've seen Alex G, for example, who did a very high quality podcast and did very, very well. So there's an example there. Look at Joe Rogan. That's the first inspiration to even do a podcast. So like. You can always pay homage for everything that you do. You can be a visionary. So there are things that I've done unique, right? I've done things that are unique to me, and that's how it should be. So you can get inspiration and pay homage to someone that you learned from or look up to or got inspiration from. So like even like when I used to do like vlogs, we did a series called Keeping Up with the Vipers. It was like almost like a TV show. But that was inspiration from Swaggy C because he was the first person I would say who made an actual like show, very high quality, very entertaining, but valuable too. So I've always said that as well. And I said it to him when I did the podcast with him. I said, I took inspiration from you there. And I feel like the more people can pay homage to people that they learned from or got inspired by or even just took a little something from, the more healthy the space can be, because it doesn't need to be a case where it's like, I did this by myself. I just learned this by myself. When in reality, what does it hurt? It doesn't hurt anyone to say,
Right.
you know, like I'm sure loads of people have joined RIT because I always say RIT is my mentor in trading. And that makes me feel good. I've physically sent like 10 to 15 people to RIT, right? And I've sent people when they come to me and they say they want a particular type of teaching, right, that I don't do. I'll say, here, RIT does that. Go to RIT, right? And then they'll be like, RIT doesn't reply to me. I'm like, listen, he doesn't reply to anyone. Don't worry. You know, that's how you know he's genuine. Yeah, he's not trying to reply to you straight away and be like, oh, come join my group. It's quite the opposite. It's like 100%. You might have to wait 2 months before you get a reply because he's not on social media like that, you know? And like I said, 4 years ago, I joined his group. There was 10 people. 4 years later, we got 150 people because he's never promoted, never once said like DM me to join, you know? So, you know, why wouldn't I pay homage to someone like that who's put a prime example of how you can be a genuine educator and mentor in the space, you know? So I was very blessed to be able to come across someone like that, to set an example of what is possible. You don't have to be like the other example that we all know of. You can and should be the other side, you know? And the more people who can do the right thing, and this is something I've been saying a lot recently, is like the more good people with the right intention who are willing to put themselves out there, do podcasts, make content, tweet, whatever it may be, whatever works for you. It doesn't have to be, you know, big on social media or anything like that. But the more good people who can put themselves out there, the more the space will change for the positive. The reason why we have such a negative connotation is because for far too long, it has been ran and the main people running it are, say, marketeers or just have negative intention. So the only way that changes is when good people, and that's probably why good people maybe shy away, because they see that and they're like, I don't want to be part of that. I don't want, you know, but in reality, the more good people who come along, it then allows people to see the other side. And I've seen that though, over recent years, there's been a lot more good communities, good people, good influencers, good podcasts, good content. We just need more, just more and more and more, right? Because it will only help the space more. Because once you flood in all the good, it's going to be hard for the bad to keep up. Because the thing is, the bad, you know, when you don't have an example of good, it's easy for the bad to thrive. Because there's nothing else. But when there's a good example and there's plenty of it, it's hard for the bad to be able to keep up with it because they can't copy, they can't replicate something that's authentic. You know,
100%. That's a great message. Going back a second to, you were talking earlier, you know, to obtain results, whether it is with podcast or with trading, being consistent, be showing up every day. What is your advice to actually become consistent? Because there are many people that actually are struggling probably, and it's one of the main things that can help them to actually achieve results. So what is your way of actually seeing consistency and maybe achieving it?
So I'll give you two. Two actionable steps that I've taken in my journey that people can take. One's a bit extreme, but it's something that's always worked for me. And one is the exact same, just minus the extreme element. That's it, yeah. But essentially, you have to be at a point first where you've actually done the knowledge, done the work to a certain degree. And in trading, let's make it trading specific, of course. So trading specifically, if you have been trading for a few years and you're not successful, right? You have good knowledge, you've spent good time in the market, but you're just not passing those challenges, you're not getting those results, and you keep falling into the same habits, right? So the boom and bust cycle, where the majority of people find themselves after maybe a year, a couple of years, right? So those people, they have two choices, right? Well, three choices. One is they do nothing and they keep doing the same thing. That's the reality. If nothing changes, nothing will change. You will keep doing the same exact thing. The same exact results will continue to happen. So like we said, if you're consistently not doing anything, you will consistently not get the results. The other two things, right? There's one extreme one and one less extreme. But the mindset's the same. The mindset is that you have to kill your old self for your new self to be born, right? There's a quote from Game of Thrones where he's talking to Jon Snow and he says, you have to kill the boy so the man can be born, right? So that principle is that you literally kill your old self, old habits, old mindset, old drive, work ethic, etc., and you can rewrite your story, right? You can start a new chapter or a new story, a new character, if you will, and you get to decide who that character is. Now, the extreme element is that I did bald head life, right? So for me, I would shave my head as a sense of rebirth. It's almost like the Matrix, you know, when like the guy Neo comes out and now he's bald and he's come out of the Matrix. So essentially, so it's like a rebirth. And I've done that many times in my journey. Whenever I wanted to restart, whether it was trading related, life related, cutting out bad addictive habits, whatever it may be, shave the head, right? Start anew. Now I have a physical and mental representation of this new character. Now, if that's for guys, obviously shave your head bald,
Yeah.
for example. For girls, it could just be cut like Mulan, you know, cut her hair short. As an example, extreme example, you don't need to do that, but it really helped me, just personally. And I had actually a student recently where, you know, he's been a student of mine for years, right? And I say student, it's not like he's paying me. I've just known him for years. He's been trading for years, and I've always just given him advice whenever he needed it. And he wasn't getting results, right, for years. But always through those years, every time we would talk, I would say, "You still smoking weed?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." And it came to a point where it's been like I said, years now, like 3 years now.
Yeah.
And you know, we met again. I said the same thing. He said, "I'm not getting the results, Riz. You know, I'm still, you know, I'm going up and going down." I said, "Okay." So, "You still smoking weed?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "There you go. You're an addict, bro. That's it. You know, you're not going to get results until you stop being an addict." And I kept saying the word addict on purpose. I wasn't trying to be mean, but I've been there. I've been the weed addict, right? I've been that guy. You know, I've been the one who would smoke every single day for, you know, for almost a year straight. And I'd think it was cool, and I'd think that, you know, it's fine, I'm working hard still.
Right.
But I was just lost, right? I didn't have the drive and focus and clarity I needed to actually progress. So now I've been there. So I was telling him, "You're an addict," right? He's like, no, I'm not an addict. You know. I said, "You're an addict." I kept saying it to him, to his face.
Did he
"You're
get
an
mad?
addict." Not really. He just kept trying to deny it, right? He understood. I was saying, "Look, I'm not trying to offend you, right? I'm not trying to be mean to you. I'm just telling you how it is. You're an addict, right?" Because he kept saying, like, it was like close to Ramadan. It was coming up. He's like, "Look, I'm going to quit. Ramadan's here Wednesday. I'm going to quit. And then, you know, I won't smoke after Ramadan." I said, "That's an addict response,
Yeah.
right? If you wanted to quit, if you truly wanted to quit, you quit right now, right?" And he's pulling out cigarettes at the time, saying, like, "Why, you quit them, right? Throw them away right now." "Oh, I just spent money on them, you know. I'll quit Ramadan." Yeah. I said, "No, you're an addict, right?" I said, "You're not going to be profitable." I was just being really strict and really like thorough. I just said, "You're not going to be profitable, right? Simple as that. Until you stop quitting." Sorry.
No.
I was basically saying, like, until you quit, right? Until you quit and stop being an addict, you will not see results in trading. It's just not possible. It's never going to happen. Look at these 3 years. What is the one thing I've told you in those 3 years that you have not done?
Yeah.
Right? Just quit weed, right?
Yeah,
Quit being an addict.
100%.
And I said to him, like, "Shave your head, man. Like, just do it. Like, whatever." You know, I was joking around. I said, "You don't have to." I say it as a joke because you don't have to. It's not like a necessary thing. But the thing is, I dropped him off, and I kept saying it to him. He kept giving me the same thing, like, "Yeah, you know, I will, yeah." I was like, "Yeah, you're not going to do it, man." Yeah. And like, you know, if you're using that whole, there's some birthdays and weddings coming up, so I'm going to smoke a little, you know, or friends gathering, or you know, it's Ramadan coming up, so I'll smoke before, and then Ramadan I'll stop, and then afterwards I'll still be stopped. I was like, none of that's happening. That's an addict response, right?
100%.
That's an excuse. Someone who wants to quit. And this is something, again, Mark Hutchinson said on the podcast I did with him, is like, when you want change, it's dramatic, right? When you want change, if you want to lose weight and you got a bottle of Coke, he said, you just pour it away right there and then. That's exactly what I was saying to him. If you want to quit smoking cigarettes, you'll dash the cigarette. It doesn't matter if you just bought it. You'll throw them away right now, right? If you want to quit weed, you're going to get that weed that you have. It might even be £100. I've done this in the past. I had like £50 worth of weed. Dashed it, right? In the bin. Gone. Finished. Don't hold on to it. Why? You know, what do you need it for? If you're quitting, you don't need that no more. Delete all the dealers in your phone's numbers. Right? Yeah. Tell all your friends who smoke weed that I don't smoke weed no more. There and then. Right? You don't need to wait to tell them. Tell them there and then. And if they don't respond in a positive manner, cut them off. That's it. These are the extremes that you need to go to make change.
Yeah.
Now, I know we went on to a bit of a long story there, but he, a few weeks into Ramadan, he messages me. And he sends me a picture of a shaved head.
Really?
Yeah, a shaved head. And guess what? His results are getting better. His clarity is getting better. And that's only in 2-3 weeks. Now, obviously, you know, in terms of results in trading, 2-3 weeks isn't long enough.
Yeah.
But there was a clear correlation between his drive, right? His positive habits now, because he was getting into the gym, right? He was reading, he was doing steps. His mental health was much better.
Yeah.
Right? And it was all a very simple thing. And now he's dedicated to keeping the bald head life thing for 100 days. And yeah, staying off the weed. Right, and he's staying consistent in the trading journey in terms of consistently turning up, and that's what it takes as well. So that's like the two elements. The shaved head thing isn't necessary. I just wanted to tell a story where someone did it, but the most important thing is that you create that change, whatever it is. It could be that you need to quit alcohol. It could be that you need to quit weed or cigarettes or vaping nowadays. It could be positive stuff though, that you need to start drinking water. You need to start going to the gym. You need to start reading. Right, you need to start doing your chart time properly. Not just sitting there and watching 10 hours of videos, right? But actually focused on 1 hour, but actually focused, taking note, right? Doing all the right steps and being relentless though, as we talked about earlier. That is, in terms of consistency and results, no one can guarantee you results in trading in a certain amount of time. And anyone who tries to, they're lying. It's not true. Like no one can actually say, If you do this for 12 months, you'll be successful in trading. What I can say though, and I can guarantee this, if you dedicate yourself in that way, in a relentless manner, for, I would even say 6 months, but I'm going to say devil's advocate and say 12. If you dedicate yourself in such a relentless manner for 12 months in all areas of life, you cut out all the stuff that's holding you back, right? And you improve upon the things that you know will improve your quality of life, you will progress.
Yes.
So not successful, but you are guaranteed to make the most progress you've ever made in your life. And that's exactly what happened last year. In August, I stopped smoking weed, stopped drinking alcohol, started going to the gym, cut out any form of like vapes or anything like that, and started just being relentless. And even though I was working hard before that, I had results in trading already. But the shift in my mindset, the momentum I had behind me every single day, and the milestones that have been achieved, not only in trading, in teaching, in the podcast, in my relationships, whether it's friends or family, everything has just improved in my life. And it's been, August, we're talking maybe 6-7 months now, right? But I started to see it by the end of the year, right? Look at the podcast. Yeah. Right? The end of the year. So that's 4 months. Yeah, exactly. So that's why I would say to people, 6 months, you could probably see it. But if you really want to see drastic change, do it for 12 months. Now, what is 12 months in comparison to 80 years or 80 to 100 years of your average life, right? If you're serious, and this comes back to that quote, Eric Thomas, when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. And that's what I take from that. It's like every single day, regardless, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy. I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't struggle, I don't get I haven't slept, I haven't slept last night. Crazy. Right? I did 2 podcasts yesterday. I had 2 one-to-one calls. I had a webinar, and then I had a business call. Then I had to watch the podcast that's coming out on Thursday. Right, that's about an hour and a half. Then I had to go home. Then I had to wash the dishes. Doesn't matter how good, how successful the podcast is, or how much money I make from trading, or anything. Yeah. So to wash the dishes so that my wife's happy. So I'm not just doing my work and leaving. I wash the dishes. Got all my stuff ready. Then I need to set off for the airport. Right. So I haven't slept, and I'm not saying that is good. That's not good. Right. It's not healthy. But it's what I had to do to stay consistent, to stay relentless, right? I couldn't have an excuse of, okay, I'm not going to wash the dishes so my wife gets angry. I'm not going to watch the podcast this week so then that slips. It's very easy for me to do that. But I know for a fact, though, in my head that I haven't slept tonight, or last night, should I say, but tonight I will sleep. But I might get home at 1 a.m., but I'll sleep in. Or the next day I haven't got anything planned as much. It's not as heavy, and that's how it's going to be. Yeah. There's going to be heavier days, right, where things are harder. Yeah. But there's going to be days where it's a little bit calmer and you can get your rest in then and relax. There will be challenges, 100%. There'll be challenges always. And I think a lot of people trick themselves into thinking that, when you get successful, it'll be easy, right? Or that life will never have a challenge again. But when you get successful, the challenges are harder because you have more to lose, right? You have more to lose when you're getting more successful. Mm-hmm. You have more on the line, more at risk as you get more successful, right? And if anything, the risks that you're taking are larger when you're more successful. Right, so then people need to remove this fantasy that, okay, when I'm successful, life will be easy and then I won't have any troubles or challenges, because it's a lie. And if you convince yourself of that, it's going to be more heightened when those challenges come along, right? Because 100%. You've not seen the negative side of success, which is there. Yeah, there's always a balance. So I know that I made that a very long answer, but in terms of being consistent and getting that consistency, it's literally just that relentless energy. Whether you do something extreme and literally physically make a change as well, that's up to you sometimes. And I would say accountability as well, that's the last step. So in terms of I use social media as accountability, right? And the reason I use it is because I just have a sense of responsibility that, hey, I'm doing day 1, people are watching. No one might be watching. The truth is, no one might even care. If I skip today, there's probably going to be no one who messages me and say, you skipped today, Riz, But just the essence of me thinking and knowing that, hey, I'm putting this out there, holds me accountable every single day, right? And whether you're big on, you want to be an influencer or you're big on social media or not, you can still use it. Whether you maybe you don't have social media. So whether you use WhatsApp stories or your circle of friends, or whether you use Discord, or whether you use Telegram, or whether you use Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, have that accountability, right? Because you will struggle some days. Like I said, you will feel like, I'll just skip today, but you can't afford to skip today. Right, because that's not that mindset that you want. That's not what's going to lead to the progress that you're looking for. So
And you say these are the days that actually challenge you and open the doors for actual growth, right?
100%. Yeah, the challenges is what makes the growth take place. Your biggest growth in terms of your character, the habits, the mindset, that you need for success will always come from your challenges. You won't see it. You won't actively see it straight away anyway. When they're first happening, you won't see it. Obviously, you're going to feel like this sucks. How am I going to get out of this? This is it now. You won't see the positive side. But the reality being, though, that eventually, as you start to get more aware of understanding that for every negative, there's a positive.
Yeah.
And for that, every challenge, there's a success that's going to come on the end of it. So like for all darkness, there's light, The more you start to recognize that and be more self-aware in those moments, you will naturally start to be able to handle. You still feel bad. You still feel a bit, heightened. You still feel a bit, this sucks. Of course, right? You're not going to sit there and be like, I can't wait now, right? You might get to that point. That's like self-mastery at another level. But you'll get to a point where you're able to handle these things a lot better, right? You're not going to be as heightened, right? You're not going to be as emotional. And in trading, that's necessary, right? Because if you don't learn how to control your emotions and handle adversity and struggle, in trading, you're going to take losses and then feel super heightened, feel super negative every time. And all that's going to do is lead to over trading or revenge trading or having a fear of taking a loss, and then therefore you're too reluctant to trade, and then you go off plan. Same with the opposite side though. If you only feel positive and you only see the positive side of a win, you're going to get overconfident, you're going to feel like God mode, you're going to, it's probably up the risk, and the same thing happens then. So you have to have that balance. It's not easy. And it's something I talked about on a webinar I did with Paladin last week, and I think he released that to the public actually, but there was a segment in there which I have as part of the psychology section of a course, and I learned it from someone called, again, paying homage, right? I learned it from someone called Lewis Mocker. He used to have a company called Infinite Prosperity back in the day, literally one of the OGs in the trading space. Right. He's not in the trading space anymore, but this is something I learned from him, which is you have it looks like a Christmas tree. It's like a pyramid. There's negative and positive, right? And you have polar opposites, right? And the masses, people at the lower end of the scale, they will constantly go from negative to positive, right? And therefore, that's all they'll do. Emotional swings. And in trading, what do you see from the inconsistent traders? That's what they're doing. Negative to positive, right? But one thing is obviously learning how to be balanced, so being a bit more self-aware of when those negative and positives are happening. So that will lead you up to self-mastery, which is balance, right? So therefore, you don't perceive things now as just negative or positive. It's both. It's the law of polarity, right? So for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction, right? So for night, there's day, right? So for like sadness, there's happiness. For light, there's dark. You can do that comparison all day long. However, another element or another layer to the story to get to that sort of more balanced nature is time horizons. So how far in the future do you see and think, right? So again, the masses, as we always talk about, like they live paycheck to paycheck. So week to week, month to month, right? We're living for the weekend, right? That's what we always say. Yeah. So that's short term, right? That's short term, weekend and month. So that's short term. That's where your emotions are heightened. So like in trading, let's take the same example. In trading, if I take a loss and I'm only thinking this month or week, that loss is going to be, whoa, what the hell? That's one of my 5 trading days. I've taken a loss. Oh my God. Yeah. But then if I'm thinking a year, what's one losing day versus, I don't know how many trading days, but like 280 days or whatever it may be. What is that? It's nothing, right? But then if I'm thinking 10 years, what's one loss in 10 years? For example, it might be even 1 month in 10 years where it's lost, or maybe 10 months in 10 years. What is that, right? Yeah. So the longer you're thinking in terms of into the future, right? And it's not about trying to live in the future because everything is made up in the present, but what we're getting at is, again, that probabilistic mindset, understanding that what happens now isn't really of importance because the vision is much higher. And some people set goals for the year. That's good. How many people set goals for 5 years, right? And this doesn't mean, and something Elliot Serge said on the podcast, like he doesn't believe in 5-year goals. And I respect what he said because it's like, you can't be so fixated in your goal setting that you think this is the only thing that's going to happen, because anything can happen. Right. Any sort of like opportunity may come along, and if you're only fixated on that one thing, you might turn it away. And that opportunity might have taken you even further than you've even planned, right? So I understand that bit. But having some form of idea and vision, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 100 years, what is your legacy, right? So that's a big thing. What is your legacy? What are you going to be remembered for when you die, right? Do you want to be remembered as someone who just tried to sell a course, right? Or just had a lifestyle marketing, for example, or was just a no one, right? Who just didn't do anything. And this isn't to say that, if you just do a 9 to 5, you can't have a legacy. Of course you can, because again, it's what we go back to. If that someone in a 9 to 5 said something to someone in their low moment that changed their life and gave them the inspiration or motivation to stay living, that person now has a
100%.
legacy, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just about business or anything like that, but in terms of who thinks about what happens when they die, you know, what's going to be left behind, how will your name be remembered? Because we talk about like Aristotle and Marcus Aurelius, we talk about Jesus, you know, we talk about these people from thousands of years ago. But nowadays, like rappers are dying, you know, actors are dying. You know, last year we don't remember their names,
Right.
Yeah, we don't remember their names. We don't mention them anymore. So we're in a different age now. Before it would be like what your words, and even to this day, words are still probably one of the most powerful things, and that's why Words of Wisdom, you know, that podcast.
Nice.
Even though now it's like, you know, before our legacies were written in stone, now it's in the cloud. You know.
Yeah.
So even though the essence change and you know, societies change and we evolve and stuff, legacies matter most, because at the end of the day, your riches, your whatever, you know, all the things that you did or had or whatever you claimed or grew, none of it will matter in the end. It's about what you maybe did with that, or most of all, how you as a person impacted others, you know.
100%.
Going back to the concept of killing an old version of you.
Mm-hmm.
This is very powerful, I think. How many times did you kill an old version of you to become the person that you are today?
It's a good question. Very, very good question. Off the top of my head, I would probably have to say at least I'm 28 now. I just turned 28. So in those 28 years, I've probably done it 5 or 6 times, just from memory. It might be slightly less, might be slightly more, but 5 or 6 times from memory. And 9 times out of 10, if not all of the times, it's always because I'm trying to create some sort of shift, right? Some sort of change, you know, in my life. As we said, but that's what we were meant to do, like drastic change. And notice, look, that it's not a case where I did it once and then I just stayed consistent the rest of my life, right?
Yeah.
I did it, I made some progress, and then maybe I slipped. Maybe I let bad habits come back in, right? Maybe whatever it may be, right? So I even imagine that I'll probably do it in the future.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I hope not to have to, in terms of that I pick up some bad habits again.
Yeah.
But you never know. That's life,
Yeah.
right? It's like we said earlier, like to think that we're never going to face challenge or struggle is a fantasy. So yeah, 5 or 6 times I'd say so far.
So it's not something you do once in your life and
You'd hope
you
so.
get the result.
Yeah, that's the plan, right? If you do it right and you really, really take it on board, that's the hope.
Yeah.
But the reality is different. You know, reality is different. I think obviously thinking about it, if you think like I was younger, you know, I'm 28 now, I'm not obviously the most wisest person, the most experienced, but I'm much more experienced than I used to be. I have much more on the line than I used to ever have. So you hope with that experience and as you gain that wisdom and you have that responsibility from say family or your community or whatever it may be, that your length of time that you stick to it sort of grows, right? Bearing in mind as well, I've never had this level of success that I have in the past, right? Because the last time I did it was a while ago. Like I think before I got married, so that was like 5 years ago, you know? So this is the first time I've done it in 5 years. But at this point, where I am compared to then, I have more to lose. So will I stick to the aim is that this is it now, right? This is it. This is just the rest of my life is like this, right? Until I want to say retire or turn things back, for example. So yeah, so we hope so, but I don't trick myself into thinking that I may never need to change again, if that makes sense.
I think you're always trying to level up.
Mm-hmm.
So when you want to level up and become a better version of you, the best version of you, you will need to face some challenges in order to become it. But yeah, 100% what you say.
I appreciate it. It's like the Phoenix, you know, in like Harry Potter. You can probably tell I like films, right? I watch films. But in Harry Potter, the Phoenix that Dumbledore has, but you know, when it dies, it's ready to die, it sets in flames. And then from the ashes, it's reborn, right? It's the same principle. So like, you know, every single, as you said, every time you want to level up, it's not a case you have to shave your head or stuff like that, but essentially like every time you want to level up, you're going to have to change something. There's going to be, even at this point, like I'm not the perfect person, right? I'm not like absolutely perfect. I know there's things that I can do better and there's things that I could add into my life that will improve me even more. But one step at a time, because there is an element where you can't do too much, you know? You can't like go from being someone who's like an addict and you're doing all these negative habits and try and add in absolutely everything, you know, from say, you know, you're going to diet, you're going to, you know, structure your day into work blocks every single day and do 5 a.m. and, you know, do every possible thing because it's not going to be sustainable. You probably resent it and then it's like counterproductive because the whole point is that it's longevity. It's a long term. So the only way to make it long term is to actually make it not realistic, because then realistic is a little bit different, but make it challenging to a point where you'll feel it like I do, like, you know, I haven't slept, for example, like these things, I'm feeling it, but I know that I can handle it. And then once you start to get comfortable with it, that's when it's time to do it again, you know. And then you keep doing that, no doubt you'll become extremely successful in no matter whatever you will do, no matter how long time that will take, you know.
Nice. That's a nice message. Actually, you were talking about the podcasts in New York.
Mm-hmm.
How was that trip? We didn't have the chance to talk about it earlier. We had lunch.
Oh yeah, we didn't. Yeah.
But how did it go?
It was amazing. So that's another example, right? Another example of the same thing. So like, you know, if this was, I probably would have still been able to do it. Here's a great example actually. I would have still been able to do it before, but I would have easily fallen into the trap of trying to smoke weed out there. Because it's legal there, right? So you can just go into a shop and smoke weed. So I would have probably done that. I probably would have been drinking.
Yeah.
Right? So imagine the quality of the podcast on top of the travel and the tiredness if I was doing those things, right? Again, same thing. Think about it. August, I stopped doing those things. So imagine if I didn't quit, would the quality of conversation I had with Mark Hutchinson be as it was? Or Ibby be as it was? Or Blackwatch be as it was? Or Raja Banks be as it was? Or Omar be as it was? Because the reality is when you drink and when you smoke, no matter if you love it or not, right, or you think it's good or not, it clouds your clarity of mind, right? It's just natural, like you know, you're hungover or you got this foggy brain, you know. So imagine trying to do a conversation like this, you know, and you know, trying to have a very powerful conversation, a very value-driven conversation, but you haven't got clarity of mind, right? Or you got a foggy brain. How are you going to have a clear enough and be in the moment to be able to extract the answers, give the right questions, you know? So maybe if I did not do that, who knows if I would have had that growth. So so like reflecting back, if I hadn't have made this change, New York probably wouldn't just, it might not have been as good as it was, but it was incredible. It was very tiring, I won't lie.
You told me, you texted me, you're like, man, already on Tuesday I have to come to
I was gone, man. I was gone, honestly. Like it was crazy. I knew it would be hard.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it would be that hard, honestly, because obviously I flew there on the Sunday. The next day was 5 podcasts. Oof. I've never done 5 podcasts in a row. But then the next day was another 5 podcasts.
That's crazy.
You know, so people don't realize, I don't think, but podcasts are very draining. Yeah. Which is weird because you just sit there and talk, right? But I think it's because you're so, like, you're really focused.
You
right?
need to have,
and it's really intense.
Yeah.
In terms of the conversation. So it takes a lot of maybe like calories and energy. Yeah. So normally afterwards you feel very, very drained. I remember I did just did Raja Banks. I remember after that episode, that was 2 hours long, very focused as you can imagine. Yeah. And I was so drained after. That was just one podcast. So I just did 10. And then I flew home the next day. And when I got home, I was just so tired, man. So I didn't sleep that much in New York. I didn't eat that much in New York because I was just doing the pods. Yeah.
So only 2 full days in New York.
Yeah. 2 full days in New York. One night it was funny because the last night, my last guest turned up a bit late because of the traffic in New York and parking in New York. So he ended up being 90 minutes late. So I'm finishing later than I was meant to. I go back to my hotel at like 11 p.m. And I order a pizza and I go to my steps. I do my steps every day and keep that habit as part of the change, the new me. So I order the pizza and I'm like, okay, cool. Let me go walk and do the steps whilst the pizza's coming. I walk around Times Square, get the steps in. So as I'm walking to Times Square, I'm doing that story of myself, right? Day, I think it was like 118 or 17 at the time. And then in Times Square, they have people who take pictures of you. Photographers try to sell you the picture, right? So this guy starts taking pictures of me, and then he starts talking to me. He's like, "Yeah, I sell them for $10." We start talking for a while, and me being me, especially now with everything that's going on with the podcast and social media, I'm there like, there's like 10 other photographers here. What are you doing different? I start questioning him.
Nice.
And then he's there like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Yeah, look, what are you doing different? These are photographers doing the exact same thing. What are you doing different to stand out or do better?" Right, then he's talking to me because he's seen me. I'm doing a story. He's like, "What do you do?" I'm telling him I got a podcast. I got this and that, and he's asking me advice. And I'm like, "Look, why don't you interview people? You're in New York. Like everyone around the world is here. These are all taking pictures. Why don't you've got a mic?" He showed me he had a mic. I said, "Why don't you just interview people?" He's like, "I don't know how." Anyway, my pizza was coming. I wanted to give him advice. I was like, "Oh, my pizza's coming, bro. Like, I'll come back." That's what I said to him. Bear in mind, I've just done 2 days of 10 podcasts in 2 days. I'm drained out. But I'm talking to this guy and there's just energy because he obviously was very motivated. He was very driven, very on me like that. So then I was like, okay, let's come to my hotel. We'll go in the lobby. We'll eat pizza, and then we'll come back out. We're eating pizza and he's asking me questions. I'm like, have some pizza. And he's like, okay, we're just breaking bread. Random guy. And he's from Guinea in Africa, but he's living in New York. And then I'm asking him like, how much do you make a day here, And you know, he was making decent amount, like on a low day $200, on a high day about $500-600. So he's making good money. But New York's very, very expensive. It's like London. You know? It's worse than London, I think. But so anyway, long story short, what ended up happening was he was saying like, I don't know how to do it, you know, don't know how to interview people. I said, all right, I'll get my vlog camera. You've seen it over there, right? Because I was doing the behind the scenes there. So I'll get my vlog camera. I'll interview you, right? And then you'll see how it's done. So I interviewed him. I did like a mini podcast, like where you from, what you doing here in New York, you know, how much money you make, you know, tell me a bit about your story, etc., etc. We ended up doing it for like 5 minutes, and then after that, I ended up saying to him, look, why don't we do this? Though? I'll pay you to take pictures of random people, right? Random people. We'll get them in the vlog and all that. And we ended up doing it for like 2-3 hours.
Really?
Right? It spread out like 2-3 hours. It ends up being like 2-3 a.m. I've just done these 10 podcasts. It was the most randomest thing. It was incredible. You know, and I gave him access to my course, and then I, you know, follow him on Instagram, and I said, you know, look, if I come and do a networking event here in New York, which I hope to, then you can be a photographer, man. Like, you know, and it was just the weirdest experience, but it's just like putting yourself out there, you know, and just, I can't remember what the original question was. Oh, the podcast, sorry. But yeah, that was like a unique thing that was off the back of the podcast. But what I was getting at was like, look, it was amazing. It was very tiring and draining, but like things happen, you know, and that's why I didn't end up sleeping, because I ended up doing that thing with this random guy, which was literally, you could say, is worthless in the sense that, you know, it might go in the vlog and does nothing, like the vlogs, because I do podcasts. So the vlogs might get no views at all. That's fine, but it was just fun to do, you know, to see this guy learning, you know, and being very enthusiastic about, oh, you know, I'm learning some stuff here. Or I'm part of this vlog here, and you know, and even though I was like super tired, it was worth the lack of sleep to be able to do that, you know, and experience that with him.
That's great story, actually. You know, meeting a guy like this and start talking about how to differentiate yourself from others and everything. Amazing story. I wanted to ask, actually, you talked about, you know, the steps that you're doing and everything. I see your stories, of course, every time. I see also on Twitter. What is actually the challenge that you're doing? Because I saw today, was it day 121 today?
22 today.
22? Yeah, out of 365. So
it's the same thing, man. Is what we're talking about being relentless every day. You know, people give the excuse you can't do it. You know, people say you can't do it. Now I've done many 100-day challenges, so like the Bold Head Life and everything. So 100 days is good because obviously that's like just over 3 months. Yeah. So that's like when you build a habit. So I've done that before, so it's not really a challenge anymore for me, if that makes sense. Like I know I can do 100 days, so I said, okay, I've now done 365 days. So the new year was coming, I just finished 100 days. So I literally, technically, after I do 365 days, I would have actually done 465 days, you know. But again, accountability. You know, we talked about, you know, rebirth, and we said like, you know, hopefully you won't have to do it again. So there's accountability. If I do 365 days, my goal is after 365 is I take it to 2 years, take it to 5 years, you know? Yeah. And I did that way by having that accountability consistently. Therefore, I won't have to do another rebirth, you know, because I'll be doing it all the time. But yeah, essentially a main part of it was because everyone says you can't do it. You know, you're gonna burn out. And I respect their opinion. I respect that. Yes, you have to manage burnout. So I mean, not sleeping. If I go sleep, I'll probably go sleep late today, obviously, because I fly back. But if I try and wake up super early tomorrow and then go sleep late the next day, I'll probably burn out. So I already know that, right? And I do have things to do tomorrow. Yeah. And I still have to put work in, still do my steps and everything. That's fine. But I just know to avoid burnout, I just need to sleep in and go sleep early. As long as I do those two things, I won't burn out, right? Yeah. And if I start to feel burnout, that's fine. Tone things down slightly in other areas, but keep the momentum going. Right, and that's it. So when people try and say like, "Oh, you can't do it," you can't do it. You know, they're just saying, "I won't do it." That's really what it's saying. You know, not that they can't either. It's just I won't, because anyone can do it, right? And it's not easy. Like I said, it's not easy. It's completely the opposite of easy. It's hard, and especially when things come along like holidays or travel or family events. You know, that's when they're the hardest. That's when they're the most necessary, right? Because that's the trick of it, right? One thing I said is like, you know, the way the calendar is set up is a scam.
I heard that and I wanted to... Great. Let's go on with that. Yeah.
So like essentially, if you look at the calendar, it will differ from country to country because they might have their own public holidays and stuff. But you look at the calendar, every single month, almost without fail, there is some event that you need to spend money on or ruin your routine on. New Year's, Christmas, Black Friday, they invent them, they make them up. Cyber Monday, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, now there's like Siblings Day. Now there's Mental Health Day, for example. Now there's like recently we had the King's coronation. We have bank holidays in the UK, loads of them. We have Independence Day in America, Thanksgiving. We have Eid for Muslims, for example, Hanukkah. We have Easter. You name it, essentially. And then birthdays on top of that, right? Weddings on top of that, funerals on top of that. You have all these things that are designed and marketed in a way over time or in society to spend money, right? And ruin your routine, right? So, I recognized that when I was a teenager. I was looking at the calendar like, wait, okay, Mother's Day is then, Valentine's Day was this, and there's a Father's Day then, and Eid was then, and Easter's then. And I was literally like, look, almost every 3 to 4 weeks minimum, there's always something. So while you're there trying to save money, society's telling you need to go buy flowers, which are now heightened because of the event. Yeah. You need to go buy a card. You need to book a meal, right? Or it's Christmas. Even worse is one is Christmas, because that's where they trick you into thinking your kid needs Christmas. Your kid needs to believe in Santa Claus and needs these decorations. And don't get me wrong, if you're Christian and that's your religious holiday, fair play, right? I don't know if those elements are part of the religious holiday or not. I won't say. But even then, I can't imagine the religion's telling you if you only have $1,000 in your bank account, go on a credit card and spend 2-3 grand just to make sure it's the best Christmas possible. Go into debt and enslave yourself to do that, right? Yeah. The religion won't say that, right? The reality is, you want to celebrate Christmas, celebrate it. No one's saying don't celebrate any of these things, but make sure you look after yourself first.
100%.
Don't set yourself back, right? Because modern day slavery is debt, right? And so when you have all these events that were made to make you spend money, right? And again, another modern day slavery is your attention span and your habits and your routines, being able to have self-control, right? So we have all these things now, anything to make it easy, right? So we have TikTok, for example. Anything to ruin the mindset and the dopamine receptors. And again, I've been guilty of this in the past. Even to this day, I fall into the trap. The phone's a big one still to this day. And I've said it probably 20 episodes back on my podcast that I need to sort it out. So again, like there's still things that I need to kill and reborn with these new habits, But yeah, so like they have these events that cause us to go off routine, off plan. Then they have these events that cause us to overspend. Now it doesn't cause us to, like no one's physically saying, go spend all this money. But essentially you don't want to be that guy who's being cautious, not celebrating, not taking your girl out on Valentine's Day, or, spending 20 grand on a wedding that when you only have 5 grand in the bank, because one prime example is weddings, right? It was only, I don't know the exact year, but I think it was like maybe 50 or 60 years ago, maybe a bit longer. But De Beers diamond company, a jewelry company, they were the ones who did a marketing campaign to convince people, hey, you need to buy a diamond. That's the way to show love and propose, right? So before that, people would probably use sapphires, probably use just crystals, probably just use a normal band, maybe wouldn't even buy anything at all. Yeah. Right? Maybe they'll just give like some sort of other, token of appreciation or that sort of bonding, right? So marketing, it's all marketing. It's crazy. It's like Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Yeah, of course. It's all marketing, right? I think Cyber Monday, if I'm not mistaken, was Alibaba, right? Really? I believe so. Or I might be wrong and they made a separate day, like Alibaba Day or something.
Oh, could be.
Really?
Yeah. Right? They make a killing. Right? Think about it, like who does Black Friday benefit?
Oh, it's like Prime Day for Amazon.
Exactly. It's prime example. But exactly. Like they just make it up, and all we fall into it. It's so easy for us to fall into because we're like, we're getting a great deal, but all we're really doing is spending money that we didn't ever plan to spend because we think, oh, this TV is now 40% off. Let me get that TV. Do you need a new TV? Probably not. But because now it's 40% off, you're like, I need that new TV.
100%.
Right? And then the cycle continues, right? And then if you want to relate it to trading, if you can't see these things and you can't manage your money, how are you ever going to manage like your trading account? You know what I mean? Like if you don't have financial principles, and I've been there again, I was the guy with the credit card debt, trying to use credit cards to buy challenges or flip accounts and so on. So I've been there. And that was a huge shift in my journey to consistency, was getting the financial foundation. So getting rid of the debt and having a cash cushion. Simple, but so effective because now you're not trading from desperation. Right?
You have your mind more clear and you're not so stressed about it.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean you're just going to be profitable.
Yeah, right.
But it's a huge element. It's so simple, but such a huge peace of mind aspect.
100%. I wanted to touch back on a topic. I usually push really hard on this topic, and I believe that can be applied to everyone. But let's talk about it for traders that want to actually get better. They want to become profitable traders. Weekends are a scam. Why?
Weekends are a scam. It's a break, especially for traders. It's the break. It's the break in the routine. because obviously trading is Forex anyway. It's Monday to Friday. Equities, options, Monday to Friday, right? The only thing that's open on weekends is crypto, as far as I know. So why it's a scam is because obviously that's the break. That's the break in your routine. So like, you know, you're on it Monday to Friday. You're in the zone, right? And unfortunately, don't get me wrong, I'm not here to say like you have to work, you know, throughout the whole weekend. However, it's the same mindset of relentlessness, right? What can you do on the weekend to help your trading? Doesn't mean you sit there and do 10 hours, but do you need to do a review of your journal for the week? Do you need to do a forecast for the week ahead? Do you need to review that journal and see where, you know, notice the patterns? Maybe that week is at the end of the month. Do you need to do an end of month review or end of quarter review, you know? What are the things that you can do on the weekend to keep your momentum going, your mind sharp and focused? Because if you do nothing and then, you know, have this 2-day break, you come back Monday, you now need to spend probably a day or two to get back in sync. Before you know it, that's Wednesday, Thursday, the market closes on Friday again, bang. Now you're just doing that over and over. You're playing catch up, if you will. While the weekend, if used correctly, can keep you sharp, keep you focused. That's why the funds that have like 10 minimum trading days, for example, or like large number of minimum trading days, that's a scam. Not to say the company's a scam. Maybe I should reword that. But it's essentially, it's not good because it's doing the same thing, right? If you pass it in 3 days and you've done it correctly, not that you gambled and passed it in 3 days, but if you did it correctly, now you got to wait 7 days of no trading. The same thing happens, and that's what they're banking on. You're going to get out of sync, right? When you're in the zone and you're smashing it out, you hit the target. Now you're going to be out of sync. And the same thing on the verification, right? You might have been lucky and had that gap, and then you still got in sync, or you did the right things, got in sync, and then you traded and you passed the verification, but now you got another 10 trading days minimum that you have to wait for. Again, same thing, right? Get the funded account, you've just taken off another 5-6 days, a whole week is off. You try and trade again, you're not in the zone, but you're excited because you got this funded account, bang, gone, right? That's what they're banking on, right? So if they have, I think 5 minimum trading days is okay. I think the lower the better, of course, but I think 5 is okay because that's a week, right? That's a week. So, you know, people do pass in one trade in 1 day, 2 days, right? But in terms of like sustainability, it's not as sustainable. You might have just so happened that your trade plan gave you a trade on the first day of the challenge. But the other people who try and hunt it, like force it, first day I'm going to pass this, they normally fail anyway because they're just forcing it. They're trying to gamble, you know. But yeah, if it just so happens it gives you on the first day, cool, and I get it. And yeah, it's not the best that you might have to wait 4 days. But hopefully by us talking about this, it makes them more aware though that, okay, you know, because you can obviously wait the 4 days or 5 days or 10 days, whatever it is, but you still trade the market. Right. You might use a personal, you might use a demo, but you're still in sync. Unfortunately, what people do is they'll just open and close the minimum lot size,
0.01.
Yeah, and then but they won't watch the market. They'll just wait and say, I can't trade anyway, so I'll wait till 9 days time, and then I can actually start looking at the market again. And that's the wrong mindset. You know?
Absolutely, yeah. I wanted to ask to all the people that are watching right now. Of course, consistency is very important in order to become a good trader. What is another advice that you have in order for people to improve their trading? You know, take funding challenges, pass funding challenges.
Actually, doing the work. You know, I've met so many traders in my journey where they've never hit 10% before, but they'll go and they'll do a challenge anyway.
Really?
So they've never done it. I'm not talking about live account. I'm saying that they've never done 10% ever on demo, paper trade, ever in a month, right? Inside the parameters they're given. But they'll go do a challenge anyway, right? And I've seen them. They've done like 3-4 challenges, and I'll say it to them. I've said like, "Have you ever seen 10%? No. Well, what are you doing then? What are you doing, right? Also reading the rules." Right, I've seen so many traders where they join a prop firm,
not even reading the
rules. Won't even read the rules properly. So then they're shocked when, I've actually bought a challenge where I can't trade the news, for example, or I can't hold over the weekend, or I'm. What else would there be? Like this, it's trailing drawdown. Like they're not reading it, right?
So because it's there, it's not a scam most of the time.
Right, exactly. Like people try and complain a lot of the time, when in reality they're not doing their due diligence. So in terms of funding, though, don't put it on a pedestal. It's a fantastic opportunity. Like obviously, I've spoken to traders, some of the top prop firm traders in New York, right? Paladin, Omar, Kyle. You know, absolutely, probably the best prop firm traders who are publicly out there. Anyway, there might be some behind the curtain, if you will. But these are guys who have proven 7 figures funded, 6-figure, multi-6-figure payouts in a single year, right? And so you can see the proof is there. These are guys who have failed multiple challenges before that, right? So they've been through that struggle. So you can see the proof is there of it can change your life for sure. So let's not pretend like, it's not a great opportunity. It's an amazing opportunity, right? It's the best opportunity we've ever seen in this industry. From like beforehand, we wouldn't have this opportunity that we have now. And the space being the way it is, with more prop firms and exciting new people entering the space, it's positive. I know a lot of people might see negative, but it's a positive because it means innovation. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a slight negative of like everyone's changing 24/7 and it's a bit erratic, so it can feel a bit chaotic. But things will stable down. Things will stable down, but it's good because it means better things for the trader, because that's the only way to compete, right? That's the only way to keep that competition alive. And then there'll be new things as well, right? So far we're used to prop firms, but there might be new software that a prop firm might use. There might be new aspects that a prop firm will offer to only make things better. So it's really good. But in terms of passing, do the work, right? Do the work first. So like we talked about earlier, the financial foundation. Not that you can't pass a challenge in debt. Of course you can. But the reality is it will be an anomaly. Again, it will be unique situations where people do that. So, you could either try and gamble and hopefully you'll do it and be one of those very few people who can do it, or you can give yourself the peace of mind of doing, okay, let me work on my skill set, make sure my technicals, my edge, my trading plan are all sound and I'm getting the results. Whilst I'm doing that, I'm saving money, get rid of this debt, right? You may even, I had a little system for getting funded that I would share with people, which was you trade a demo account, right? So a free trial potentially if they have one, or a demo account, and you make your 10%. When you made that once or twice, now go on a small live account, right? Small, $200, $500, $1,000, right? Whatever is small to you and you can afford to lose, of course. That's something that many people don't talk about nowadays. Remember, any money you spend on trading, whether it's a course, whether it's signals, or whether it's a challenge or deposit into an account, always money you can afford to lose. So again, if you're in debt, you can't afford to lose that money. You can't afford to spend it, right? Because you need to get rid of that debt first. So that's number one. But anyway, if you have a small live account, you do the same thing. Why? Because now you're testing your actual psychology. And the most important thing you're going to be testing is your greed. A lot of people try and say, small live account, why would you take it serious? And that's true. But at the end of the day, if you can't control your greed on a £500 account, you think you're going to control it on 100,000, right? Of course not, because now you're going to be really greedy, right? If you're greedy on £500, you're going to be super greedy on 100,000, especially if you know that you're doing it for this purpose. So again, trial account, pass it 2-3 times. You know you can achieve 10%. Small live account, I wouldn't say there's like a time restraint on that, like 4 weeks or whatever. But again, same thing, 10%, but staying consistent even on that small account, being disciplined on the small account, because now you tested your psychology. Then you go do maybe one more trial account just to get used to the higher figures again, like the lot sizes and the risk amounts and the numbers you're going to see. Now do a challenge, because now you've proven to yourself you can achieve 10% or whatever the target may be. Bear in mind, there's a lot of prop firms now that have no time limit, so you don't have to achieve whatever the target is in a certain amount of time. So that's incredible. But let's say 10%, just to argument's sake. You know you can achieve 10%. Now you know your psychology is ready to be disciplined, and now you're used to, again, before you start, the lot sizes and the numbers. So, because obviously when you're doing small account, it's 0.01, 0.05. Right. So you've adjusted back to the lot sizes. Now do a challenge. You've proven it to yourself, right? So that's the sort of system I've given to people over the years. But the reality being, look, one big thing I can say is don't take it so seriously, right? You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, everyone fails challenges, right? If these guys were anything to take an example of in terms of like Paladin, Omar, Kyle, they have all failed challenges. I think there's not a single person on this earth who has done a challenge and never failed it, right? In anything in life, not even just prop firms, anything in life. Now, no one's just gone and done something and just been successful at it and been flawless at it, and that's it. No one. So with these challenges, don't take it so seriously. They're designed to make you a bit heightened, depending on, especially with the time restraints. If they have these time restraints on, they are definitely designed to make you heightened, right? Again, though, you're the one who's allowing yourself. It's not the prop firm. They've told you got 30 days and you got to make this 10%. So it's not their fault. They've told you that. So if you can't achieve that, then why are you doing it? If you know you can achieve that, why are you feeling heightened, right? So just have fun with it in terms of like, stick to your risk management. Don't mistake that for like, not going to be professional. I'm just going to go crazy. No. But have fun with it in terms of don't take it so seriously. If you lose an account, don't start calling yourself a terrible trader or a bad trader. Learn from it. What did you do that lost that account? Did you stick to your rules and you had a losing streak that actually was with the plan? Then you did nothing wrong. Did you go off the plan and you gambled? Take note of it. Okay, that's not good. Let me take note of that. Don't just jump into another challenge potentially. Take a step back, make sure you learn and everything. but don't take it so seriously that, oh, I'm such a terrible trader, I need to quit, I need to do this.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Because then that's a lot of the time why what happens is they take one loss and they're like, oh my God, oh no.
I need to change strategy.
Yeah, change strategy, or let me just try this, and then they off plan straight away. I've had people where literally I've mentored them for 3 months. In those 3 months, they've hit 10% month every month. And then they go into a challenge, and sometimes they'll pass the challenge, which is great. And they do the same exact habits they did in the mentorship for the 3 months. But then the verification, they go reckless, right? Right? Because they just start rushing, right? Suddenly in the mentorship, when they were achieving 10%, they were only taking 3-4 trades a week. Suddenly when they failed this challenge of verification, they took 7 trades in a day.
They go crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, it's like, you have to control yourself. You have to understand what worked to get you funded, or to get you the 10% result in the month, or to get you past a challenge, or especially challenge, because a lot of people pass challenges, which is the harder one.
Yeah.
And then they fail verification. And it's simply because they will just start rushing. They'll think, oh, half the target, double the time, bang. I can do this easy. And they might even get, normally what happens to people is they take a trade and they get 4% in profit or 3% in profit, and then it starts going against them, and they're seeing that goal fade away, you know. And then they'll start taking 7-8 trades, and all that hard work of 3-4 months is gone, just simply because they changed what they were doing.
100%.
How much do you think the risk when trading is in the strategy, and how much is outside the strategy? I mean, in psychology or money management, whatever.
It's interesting because this is something that Iqbal talked about on our podcast, and he talked about he can break down profitable trading into 3 sort of sections, if you will, right? One is your edge, your technical edge. One is your trading plan, so your risk management, and then one's your psychology. And there's a 4th one that I came across as well. But I think each of them are very important, because without one, you can't have the consistency. So if you don't have a trading plan, you can have an edge in psychology, but you won't have risk management, so you'll blow your account, right? If you have your trading plan and you have your edge, but no psychology, you won't be disciplined. So you won't be consistent. If you have your psychology and your trading plan but no edge, then you're just trading randomly, so you won't be consistent. So you need all 3 of those things. But the 4th layer is persistence, what we talked about earlier, relentlessness, right? Because you can have all 3 of those things. If you're not persistent, though, any hurdles that come your way, or any sort of struggles inside trading or outside trading, you're gonna fade away. You're gonna allow it to get to you. You're gonna take breaks. So that persistence is the 4th layer there. But in terms of your question, psychology is one of the most important, I think, because obviously that's where most people fail. And a lot of the time it could be limiting beliefs that they've brought from outside of trading. It could be that they're not self-aware enough to understand their mistakes and why they're operating the way they are. And a lot of times self-awareness is just asking yourself questions. And that's not something we're used to. Yeah. Nowadays, we're so distracted 24/7. We don't spend time with ourselves. And I'm guilty of this as well. We don't spend time with ourselves. Anytime we are alone, let's say you're walking or jogging, you got a podcast on, you got headphones on, you're listening, you're making a story, you're replying to comments, even at home, you're always watching TV, watching your phone. On the toilet, you're just watching your phone, on YouTube, or you're doing your posts or whatever. So there's no me time anymore. There's no alone time. So you never listen, you never actually have a conversation with yourself, So you can never. So when it comes to like someone saying, ask yourself these questions, you're like, well, that's ludicrous. I'm not going to do that. When in reality, if you literally sat there and just said, okay, why did I blow this challenge? Why did I lose this challenge? Why did I do it? Okay, so you took 7 trades in one day. Why did you take 7 trades in one day? And that's it, just doing that. And it sounds simple, but you'll get to a point where it gets hard to answer, but they're the questions that you need to find the answer for. And you will have to sit there by yourself with a pen and pad and wait until the answer comes to you. And you go into as much detail as possible, because that is what's necessary. Right? And again, it's hard for us to do, and so alien to us, because we feel like we're not used to it. It feels like we probably feel a bit crazy or weird that we're spending this time with ourselves, that we're speaking to ourselves or having this conversation with ourselves, when in reality, who else is going to have it? No one else can come out there and be like, why'd you do that? Here's the answer for why you did that.
Of course.
It would be great if they did, but it doesn't exist. And don't get me wrong, there are great programs, for example, in terms of Rewired, that Mark Hutchinson owns, which is purely on psychology. And if anyone's watched any podcast with Mark, whether it's with you or with me or anything that he's done or watched his journey, you know that one of the biggest factors of Mark's character is the psychology. You can just literally watch, whether in person or online, you can see the man and you can see that this man knows himself. He's in tune with his mindset. So for someone like that, is offering some sort of psychology or mindset course, I would say to people to do their research, right? Because just from the free content that he's put out and the interviews I've had with Ibi, Abdu, and Mark, and even people like Michael Bamba, who used to be members of really? Falcon, right? Their mindset is very different, right? Even though, like, again, Michael started, had quite a large part of his foundational in his journey there, and he said this on the podcast as well, but you can still see the mindset that is different in that person due to that influence. So, again, I get nothing from it, but, I always, again, pay homage and pay props to people that I recognize in the space. And those guys, in terms of psychology, I actually even had one of my students, to be fair, one of my students joined them in terms of psychology, and he's had a huge shift. It's not like it's crazy things. It's not like it's, oh my goodness, this has changed my life. It's more like just very small details, but lead to big results. Yeah. Very small elements of asking you certain questions and being more self-aware, leading to a lot more clarity in terms of your trading. And more importantly, not even clarity, but more importantly, calmness in your trading. Not allowing these self-sabotaging thoughts of, oh, there hasn't been a trade for a week, you must be terrible, or your trade system must be rubbish, change it now, right? Yeah. So it's very interesting.
Or maybe you enter a trade and you start doubting it and you want to close it. All these type of things.
That's it. It happens to everyone. That's the natural way to think, you see. And the whole point is that trading, in terms of being a profitable trader, it's unnatural, right? It's probabilistic mindset. Yeah. So why, who is ingrained with a probability-based mindset? So like I had Abdu on the podcast, and Abdu, growing up, he used to be, like, literally as a teenager, like 13, 14 years old, he would make good amounts of money, basically running the odds and casino on a game called RuneScape, right, which is wild. It's crazy. Yeah. But because he grew up in a very sort of a time in his life where it was very much taking things in and sort of shaping his mind still. His mind was still being molded by society, if you will. So his experience of that allowed him to transition into trading with a much higher playing field than most people, because he's already experienced probabilities right at a young age and seen what, why the focus on probabilities is so important in trading, right? So like it's very interesting, because again, we're not naturally ingrained to think the way we need to as a trader, and that's why, whether you do it alone, or whether you be mindful of it, or whether you seek out advice or help, whether it's from someone like Mark and Rewired, or whether it's from a psychologist, or whether it's from whatever, right? Or again, if you just do that work yourself, it's not easy, but you can. If you sit there and really dive into who you are and why you act the way you do that work, because it's necessary. Like, again, as you were mentioning earlier, what's the percentage of like mindset and psychology, etc.? I think mindset is the biggest part, because without that, you can't deploy the rest. You can have all the great technicals, you can have the greatest trading plan, but without that mindset, it's useless. Yeah. All of it's important, but without the mindset itself, because even in everyday life, like if you want to be successful as a whole, not just trading, without the mindset, you won't get there, right? You could be the hardest worker in the room. You could be, have the greatest tools, you could have all the money in the world. If you haven't got the right mindset, look at the people who win the lottery. Yeah. They get all the money in the world. We've had people who won hundreds of millions, right? But because their mindset is not correct, it's gone within a few years, It's a prime example. Crazy.
So better having a good mindset and an average strategy, rather than a very good strategy and a bad
and a poor mindset. One. Someone's ripping out here. What they got? I think it was like a moped. It was
the GP.
Souped up, yeah. No, but you're 100% right. Like, if anything, it's because what do you define as an average strategy? You know what I mean? It's like people would define someone taking 1 to 2 risk to reward, for example, as an average strategy. Yeah. Right? Because they see 1 to 50.
I'm having trouble with the connection. Please try again in a moment.
Who was that? The Matrix is attacking us. Someone will look at 1 to 2 risk to reward and say that's average, right? But that's only because they're trying to say that 1 to 50 or 1 to 100, that's something that someone else that might be realistic, right? Someone out there might look at 1 to 50 and say that's realistic, right? And they might be doing it, right? But for most people, they'll say that's unrealistic as well, right? Okay. But then again, like the 1 to 2 risk to reward, someone might say that's average, or like that's no good, that's terrible. But then again, referring back to the top prop firm traders in the world who have been interviewed, and I interviewed them in New York, Paladin, Omar and Kyle, multi 7-figure funded, multi 6-figure payouts, and yet they don't take less than 10 pips stop loss. On average, it's 15 to 25 pips. They don't take what's it? They don't take like, you know, super crazy high risk rewards, you know? So
What was their average?
risk rewards?
Yeah.
Like 1 to 2, 3, something around there.
Okay.
So like, yeah. So like, well, some people might sit there and be like, oh, that's terrible. But then these are the best prop firm traders in the world right now, right? Again, the ones who are active and on social media like that. So what are you going to say? You know what I mean? Like who are you to judge what's average or not, right? But as you said, at the end of the day, regardless, the mindset is most important. So again, what you might class as an average strategy, but because their psychology is on point, it makes them a ton of money.
Yeah.
You know? While versus someone who might be chasing 1 to 10s, and what someone might say, this is an incredible strategy, the best strategy ever, but terrible
this
mindset.
is what they are looking for.
Yeah.
Normally,
Yeah.
they are looking for a good strategy. They are not looking for a good approach to
100%.
the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because again, I've had people where, again, that same mentorship, where they make 10% consistently month on month, but they still go and try and learn something new. Because they're making the result look, but they still go and try and learn something new because, as you said, they think one day they're going to learn something where that's it. I can read the whole market now in terms of like I can literally jump on the chart and say buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, ping pong the market, trade every single move, and that's just a fantasy, you know.
Yeah.
I don't care what anyone shows; it's a fantasy. Yeah, you could try, and it will come with a lot of losses and break evens and all sorts of other stuff and psychological damage, no doubt. But it just doesn't exist, right?
Exist,
and you don't need it. That's the most important thing to remember. You don't need it. You literally can trade one pair, one session, every day or a couple of days a week or 1 day a week, and you can still make enough money to be a full-time trader, right? There's all the variables. There's no one set way to do it, right? There's infinite number of ways to trade, and there's an infinite number of combinations you can trade that, and you know all you have to do is find the way that you trade it. You could be trading Ishimoku clouds, which is something I learned like a couple of years ago, not as in I learned, but I came across a couple of my students who used to trade that way. Ishimoku clouds is the weirdest indicator I've ever seen. There's people who probably use the moon cycles?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
People use the moon cycles, and again, if they can do it and it makes sense to them, and they are profitable at the end of it, who is anyone to turn around and say, "Hey, that can't work"? No one, because they're doing it. They're the proof, right? Exactly. Does it mean that everyone can do it? No, right? Yeah. But not everyone. This is why you can't just copy and paste someone's strategy.
100%.
Right? I can't just go to you and say, "I'm gonna copy and paste your strategy." No. Like I might be able to copy 90% of it, but I would still need 10% of my own, whether that's you take 1 to 4 and I take 1 to 3, or whether you use an EMA and I say, no, I want to use an order block, whatever it may be, right?
100%.
But that people need to realize that, you know?
Yeah. I was talking about this exactly with Iqbal Mark from Falcon FX. And, you know, we were saying how our ways of trading are totally different, of course. Mm-hmm. And people, especially on social media these days, they are really ready to judge on the strategy that you're using. Oh, you're using retail concepts, or you're using this, or your risk to reward is too low, or all of these things. But at the end of the day, what we were saying is that if it works for you, it can be one strategy, it can be a different strategy, it can be indicators, it can be head and shoulders patterns traded in a certain way. If it's profitable to you, you just keep doing it, and no one can actually judge the way you're trading just because there is a trend online that is going on.
100%. You know, we've seen it happen time and time again. You know, no doubt before, you know, Head and Shoulders was as popular, let's say, whenever that was, you know, there was probably like Japanese candlesticks was the thing, you know. So when Head and Shoulders came along, they're probably beefing with the Japanese candlesticks community and so on and so forth, you know. But, you know, with social media, it's just got worse, you know. It's just so easy to throw your comments out there. And this is actually something in terms of, you know, bettering yourself, you know, and being more consistent. That's another thing. We talked about, obviously, you know, quitting weed, quitting alcohol, quitting vaping and stuff like that. But another one that you can, is another impulse control that you have to learn to control is loosely formed opinion. Meaning that you shouldn't just throw your opinion out there very quickly. You take time to really reflect and to understand the situation and have knowledge on something before you comment, right? But yet people are just, especially with social media, just so easy to just have a ghost profile or just even their own profile and just be like, you suck, or you know that style of trading is no good, or so and so said this, you know. And again, that's another form of impulse control. So when you see people doing that or giving into the hate, you know, being a hater or just getting into these stupid debates, 9 times out of 10 they're probably not a consistent trader because they're showing that they have a lack of impulse control.
100%.
So this is very important. We can state that the strategy is not the point.
Yeah.
So the strategy is not the point. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Great. That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's important. Yeah, it's important. And obviously everyone always puts focus on technicals, you know.
Yeah.
I think nowadays there's always like a shift, right? There's always a shift. And I think, again, it takes people speaking about it. It takes, you know, I've seen people where they don't like podcasts or they're hating on podcasts recently. Like they're just saying like people who do podcasts are just trying to be motivators, or I don't know what they're saying. But for me, it's like, look, the amount of information that comes out of a podcast trumps almost everything else, right? It literally, because it's like 2 hours long, it's a flowing conversation, you're getting actual someone's perspective, unscripted, raw.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably one of the best ways that people can learn, and it's not to do with technicals, right? And you can get people's opinions. Like you can sit there, you might have said that, right, where it's not about technicals. I might turn around and say to you, it's all about technicals, right? And that's still good, because then we will talk it out, we'll have our own points of views, and people out there will be able to be like, I understand both. I see both now, right? And so now I understand why it's good, but also bad, you know? And that's why podcasts are so great, in my opinion. That's why I love them so much. And you know, I never understand when people don't like them. There's not many people, but like I've seen a few people where they're like, podcasts are just for trying to make content, or they're trying to, I don't know. I don't get it, but yeah. I just keep going. I keep going. I film 30 more.
I think it's like reading a book. At the end, you can get some insight, some good insight from a podcast, and you can...
Yeah, and then you have different people. And this is the beauty of how the trading space is evolving. Because in the past, you know, when we started, there was not really podcasts, or maybe I was not aware of, but I didn't really see any trading podcast. And now, you know, people can get perspectives of other traders who are doing it, or other entrepreneurs and stuff. So I believe that's really powerful, and it's a great form of content to actually, as you say, it's unscripted. So it's not like we know which questions or which conversations we're going to have. So that's really great. You just really get someone's perspective on certain things. That's a great way to actually approach the trading space or entrepreneurship or whatever the content is about.
Definitely. No, definitely.
100%. I wanted to ask you, what was your aha moment in trading, if there was one, or was it more a process?
I would say it's kind of a bit of both, you know. So like things that made me sort of have more clarity on the technical side were like, you know, this makes sense. That makes sense. So like risk to reward for me was one. Understand, just even though it's always been there, you always get taught with a risk to reward model and you know, having a 1 to 2 risk to reward or whatever it may be. But just understanding that the higher risk to reward you can have obviously is great, but just the main understanding was that, you know, you could lose a lot more and still be profitable. So that was kind of like a little aha moment in that sense. Yeah. But really it was a process overall. As I've always said, that the holy grail in trading, in my opinion, is the tweaks. You know, the small little things, like the financial foundation we talked about, like, you know, making sure that you're doing the psychological work, making sure that you understand where your strengths are, you know, making sure you understand the market conditions, knowing how to use discretion. All these little tiny details, when put together, is the holy grail for me. I don't think there's like one thing that, as I said, I think people search for that, where they find something that does give them like a, not just aha, but like they're like, aha, now I can read the market, you know. You can have things that really, you like, so even like SMC for me was great, you know, like order blocks, for example, like was just, when I first learned them, I was like, whoa, like, this is a really great methodology of entering the market, you know. It comes with its trial and you know, and challenges, no doubt. It's not just like, oh, this is great. Right. Now you suddenly like, oh, everything's an order block. Order blocks are everywhere. All these different time frames, you know. Now you have to, you know, go deeper than just the surface level, you know. So yeah, it was more like a process, and a part of that process is doing that and going deeper into not just, this is an order block, that's how it works, that's it. Yeah. Okay, how can you do a sort of a quality check on your order block, right? Rather than just, this is just an order block, and okay, I'll mark it out, and then hopefully we react to it, and I'll just set a limit, or we get a confirmation, I'll enter. Instead, it's more, how do I pick and select quality order blocks / POIs, you know? So point of interest, right? So how do you do that? What is that process? Going deeper, right? Yeah. What time frames do I want to use, right? Well, how do I define myself as a trader? Am I a swing trader? Am I a day trader? Am I a scalper? What does that then mean for my day-to-day, right? If I'm scalping, how many trades am I taking in a day or a week? You know, like, so you're going deeper. You're not just saying, I'm a trader, I do this sort of style, let me just jump on the charts. And that's what a lot of people do. Yeah, right. You know, and because maybe it's a lack of passion for actual trading, and they're just doing it because they think, oh yeah, Wi-Fi money and, you know, get rich quick and uncapped potential. Yeah. Or it's because they haven't had the right guidance, or again, they're just not taking it seriously enough, you know. They're not being relentless. And again, you need to reflect on, and And I said it to this guy today. This guy, I think you heard me in the car, right? He had sent me a message saying, "Oh, risen back. You know, I went through that rough patch, and you know, I'm ready to kill it." And he sent me a message saying, like, "How can I be the most profitable? You know, what should I do to be profitable?"
Yeah.
And I said to him straight away, like, "Look, bro, it's been a few years since I've known you, and in those years you've been on and off. So I'm just gonna say to you straight away, first of all, really reflect if you're actually willing to put in at least 12 months of dedicated, relentless hard work. And if the answer is no, there's no shame in quitting and just not being a trader.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you're just going to waste time and money and effort and probably just keep going around in circles as you have been, right? Because if you're not willing to change that mindset and actually stick to it, there's no point. There's literally no point. If you're just going to be one of those people who literally is like, okay, 3 months I'm on it, something bad happened or something else happened, I take a month off, 2 months off, 6 months off, there's no point. You're just going to waste your time.
Yeah.
And you're going to waste so much money when you could be putting that into something that you actually enjoy. And it might not even be a business. Like I said, not everyone's meant to, something Rit said to me actually, because Ibby said something on the podcast which Rit responded to, you know, in DMs. Ibby said something like, you know, like essentially like university is a scam in a sense that, you know, you should, why would you go to university for 5 years and make, you know, 50k in debt when you could go put yourself and dedicate yourself 5 years in a skill set and, you know, make unlimited amounts of money, right? I don't know if he said unlimited amount of money, but essentially full-time income, right? On your own terms in that sense. And Rit turns around to me and says, that's bullshit. Like, what's he saying? Like, in terms of like, most people shouldn't even be entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Right? It's not in their DNA. It's either in your DNA or it's not. You're either that person or you're not. Right? And I had to agree with him as well. As I understood Ibby's point in terms of like, for people who, I imagine the missing link there is for those who it's in their DNA, don't waste your time doing that.
Exactly.
And don't get me wrong, it's not easy to know if it's in your DNA or not. A lot of people obviously want to be entrepreneurs and they think they'll be good at it. And no doubt, I could probably put myself there. Yeah, maybe I could have easily quit. Maybe I maybe easily could have not made the changes necessary, for example. But yeah, so like it was interesting because like, you know, my mentor was basically saying like, this guy's wrong. Like, you know, majority of people, 99% of people should not be traders. 99% of people should not be in business, right? Because it's not who they are. They just like the idea of making money or having freedom, right? Yeah. And again, this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of they're just seeing the positive. What is the positive of trading? Right? What is the positive of being a businessman or an entrepreneur or having this freedom or making all this money? Right? Most people don't even realize that when you make a lot of money, you need to pay taxes on that money or be efficient so that you don't have to pay as much tax on that money. Either way, if you only see the positive, what's going to happen is you're not going to pay the tax because you're not going to think about it. Now you're going to pay double, triple. You're going to have them on your back and more than likely close down your business because you weren't prepared. Just for the simple reason that you only focused on the positive, right? And you just didn't take the time to realize, okay, if you make a lot of money, where are the challenges? Because one analogy my mum gave me was something like, for every zero, it's like 100 to 1,000, 1,000 to 10,000. For every zero, it's a new level. And with that new level, there's great positives, great things that you can enjoy and that are now unlocked for you. But there's also great challenges that come with every zero as well. Whether it's taxes or fines or new company structures or whatever it may be, it's a new level, right? So like, you know, when you scale from 10,000, it's very different to 1 million. But just as 1 million is very different to 10 million. Just as 10 million will be different to 100 million. You know? So it's not the same. Right? Don't get me wrong, there might be a certain level where you get to and, you know, things become a bit more strategic rather than, oh wow, this is a, you know, it's an incredible amount of money. So like between 10 million and 100 million, I'm sure it's a lot of money, obviously it's 10x. But in terms of, you know, your lifestyle or your feeling towards it, it might be very different in terms of you won't be there like, oh my goodness, I made 100 million versus when you make your first million or 10, you might be like, this is incredible, right? While instead your reaction might be more strategic. Okay, how do I move this money? How do I use this money? How do I safeguard this money, right? So there might be a switch in mindset like that. But otherwise, like, there's still always going to be new levels, right? There's always going to be new challenges that come with it. And if you don't recognize that or you're not being aware of that, you're going to struggle. You're going to face like a really hard time.
100%. Touching on order blocks that you mentioned earlier, do you think that smart money actually works?
I think smart money works, but I think it's very similar to what Kieran Duff said on the podcast, which is you have to be smart. It's in the name. Like, you can't just call yourself smart money just because you're using the concepts. You have to be smart with how you use it, right? And smart money, essentially, I think if you go back, is just basically, I think Blackwatch said on the podcast, like, it's just premium and discount, essentially, right? If you really revert back to what smart money was indicating too. You know, and since then, obviously, the narrative's changed and there's a lot more concepts, etc. So I think it works, but I think just like with any strategy, the majority of people, the people themselves, won't make it work. So the reason why there might be a narrative of smart money doesn't work is because the people trying to use it aren't being smart, aren't being disciplined, right? So therefore, technically speaking, just like with indicators, just like with support resistance,
Yeah.
none of it works really if you just take the example of the masses.
Yeah.
So smart money doesn't work, right? Support resistance doesn't work. Trading doesn't work. Business doesn't work. No one can be successful, right? If you take the example of what the majority of people's results are. Does that make sense?
100%.
Right? So, but can it work? Yeah. Because as
Yeah.
long as you, again, the same example on the other side, the people who are doing it successfully are there using it. What is it? What's the difference though? And the difference is everything that we've talked about so far in terms of discipline, in terms of mindset, in terms of being smart, in terms of being relentless. It's like there's a blueprint for success,
Yeah.
right? And it's not things that are secret, but it's people willing to do it. Now it's always people, I think they put it up because it's like, it's cliche. The motivational videos, you know? So like Eric Thomas saying, when you want to be successful as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. People might hear that. Like for me, when I heard that the first time, especially the way he delivered it, I'm not as good, but the way he delivered it, it was so powerful. I was like, wow, this is incredible. You know, this is, oh my goodness, he's so right. And he is right. But it's so easy then to not make any changes, not actually take it on board what he's saying, and then just start calling it cliche or motivational speaker. But the reality is, if you actually take action on what he's saying, you know, what does it mean to be want success as bad as you want to breathe? That basically means that you need to breathe to be alive. So you want success as bad as you want to be alive, right? And it's not here trying. Again, success is variable to each person, right? So it's not a case where like success is like $100 million. That's the way it means for everyone. Success for one person could just be having a family and kids and being happy, right? But when you want that as bad as you want to breathe, you'll make it happen. You'll do anything in your power. And that's what we were talking about earlier about the relentlessness. Every single day, regardless of challenge, no sleep, nothing. Like I would do this podcast for 10 hours with no sleep, no problem, right?
Yeah.
Will I be dead at the end of it or like super drained? Yeah, but if I know that that's what it's going to take, then I've got to do it. And people again might sit there and be like, that's motivational. But what I'm saying is, no, don't listen to my words. Just go do it, right? And then do it for long enough. You'll see the compounding results of doing it, right? So don't listen to the words. Just take action. That's the most important thing. Take the actual action consistently. So as I said, 12 months. If you do it for 12 months, I guarantee you'll see immense progress. You'll see it at 6 months, right? And and the main thing about it, really, which is the most powerful, is you see the results of your hard work. So now, instead of actually working to see results, you're working because you start to enjoy the work because you know it's going to lead to results. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But before, you might be not as relentless. And you're turning up doing work, as in like you're turning up watching a webinar, turning up just sitting on the charts, and you're classing that as work, but you're not enjoying it because you're not getting results. So now you're actually hating the journey. You're hating the work itself.
Right.
Yeah.
So it becomes like this big resentful cycle, if you will. Well, if you start to then actually see the relentlessness, so you're actually being very intentful with how you're working, what you're working on, how often you're working, how consistent you are with working. Then after 6 months, let's say, could be less, but let's say 6 months, you start to see results of that. And now you start to see result in month 7, month 8, you're seeing the compound, right? And you're understanding that it's because of your relentlessness and your consistency in day-to-day action that is leading to that result. Now you actually thrive off the work. You enjoy the work. You want to do the work even when you're tired, even when you're struggling, even when your partner's arguing with you, or when your family's arguing with you, or there's a death in the family, or you're feeling a bit ill. You want to do it because you know if you do it, you'll get results. Yeah. Right? So then you have a very positive relationship with work and the results. And I think that I can't remember his exact name. I think it's Andrew Huberman. He talks a lot about dopamine. He's a neuroscientist, I believe.
Yeah, I understood which one.
Yeah. So like he talked about that in terms of you need to rewire your process of actually, rather than getting the reward from results oriented, you need to be work oriented. So the actual journey itself gives you the results. Gives you the reward, the dopamine hits. Yeah. And I feel like that's what I've done through this process that we explained earlier in terms of being relentless and rebirthing, if you will. I feel that's what I've done because now I can handle like the no sleep. I can handle the draining, the all the different things in life, Yeah. And like I said, it's not easy. There are challenging days, and on the opposite side, there are amazing days where you feel like pure in flow and just crushed everything. Nice. Right? Yeah. But regardless of which feeling you're getting, both, I'm aware of both. So I'm aware that when I'm feeling good, there'll be some challenges coming. And when there's challenges, I'll be like, there's some great stuff coming. And then on top of that as well, you start to enjoy the process. You just understand that, hey, just keep going because this is what's going to lead you to the next milestone. So like with the podcast as an example, it was like an interesting thing. So like obviously August start of August to December. That's 4 months. In that 4 months, I just stayed consistent as I always did. I tried to get better. I had similar guests on at the same time. I had Tans on twice, I believe. I had Riz Sardar on 4 times, I believe.
Okay.
You know, and then I had Blackwatch on. I had Albert on. I had Mark Hutchison on. I had Ibi on. I had my mum on. I had my friend on from Australia on. You know, so I had all these mixture of people on, right? But I just stayed consistent. But whilst I was staying consistent, I was trying to learn. I was still doing all my other habits as well. You know, I was building just me as a person rather than me as a podcaster or me as a trader. And then the momentum began to come. You know, so I hit 5,000 or 6,000 subscribers in December. January comes along, we hit 10.
Ooh.
February comes along, we hit 20. And then we just hit, today's what, the 2nd of May? Yeah, so we've hit 33 today, probably.
Nice.
Right? And the goal was hit 30 by the end of April, and we hit 30 in 5 days earlier, you know? And then
That's
our
amazing.
goal for the end of Q2 is to hit 50K, but I think we'll probably hit it by the end of May or something. Right? But the same thing is that I don't give in to the numbers. I feel like happy about it in terms of like, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
But it's the process. It's literally like the only reason that's happened is because we stayed consistent. We've made sure to, you know, like again, I don't have to go to New York, right? I didn't have to go to New York, for example, to do this podcast, right? It's beneficial to me, no doubt. But I could have literally just stayed at home and then whatever it will be, and I'll get these guests or whatever. But no, it's like, okay, you want to keep pushing the boat. You know, you want to push it further. You want to do something more. Go to New York for 2 days. Get as many people. Like people flew into New York just for the pod. We had two people from Canada, someone from Florida, someone from Puerto Rico. I think one more person from somewhere else in the States, right? So 5 people.
Nice.
So half of the guests came from outside of New York just for the podcast, right? And again, if I didn't put myself out there, if I didn't message these people, if I didn't... Because imagine, I could feel scared and be like, oh, Swaggy C's never going to want to come on my podcast. Or like, you know, any of these people. I could easily just be like, oh, why would they want to come on? Or, you know, be hesitant, right? Or just say, come to the UK, very far away for you. Come, right? But in essence, it's like, I'm coming here to you. Let's do it. Let's just do it. Let's come. You'll enjoy it, you know? Not convincing them, but like putting yourself out there. Right. And not just being complacent just because you've hit certain milestones. Because you actually enjoy the work. So I enjoyed the podcast, and we talked about how draining it was, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the process, you know. And would I do it again? Of course, you know. And now I'm going. I have to come here, obviously, and I go back tonight, sorry. And then I've got Dubai on Monday, filming podcast there. Come back. Might have to go to New York again. If I do, then I'll come back, and then go to Miami in June. Come back, and then I might hopefully be home for a bit in June. But right now, to be honest with you, I don't even need to do Dubai or Miami, because right now with the amount of episodes I have, I think that takes us to the end of the year.
Yeah.
You know, so like I don't have to do these things, but I do them because that is what's necessary for the continued growth.
Yeah.
Same with the trading though. The thing with the trading is you don't have to do like these huge moves like with the podcast, for example. You know, the trading can be done anywhere. The trading can be, you know, you're still sharpening your tools. Like I said, you're keeping up to date with what the market conditions are. You know, you're not trying to change your strategy 24/7. But one adjustment I made, as we talked about earlier, was I was scalping last year. You know, just Frankfurt and London sessions. So 7 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. max. So 4 hours maximum. A lot of the time the trade would come in the Frankfurt Open or London Open. So the first 2 hours.
Yeah.
That was fine. That was working. But then obviously started this year with the podcast and just with my lifestyle that's been happening. I've been traveling a lot. So then trying to have a strict routine and being able to be up at those hours, etc., isn't as easy.
Yeah.
So all I did was just do the exact same entry drill, turn it up in terms of a couple time frames, and then just day trade, right? And that's been working. If anything, it's working much better in terms of my routine, in terms of the mindset as well. I take less trades, but the strike rate's higher.
Nice.
You know? And it's just, again, recognizing where life changes. Because some people, I think they trick themselves into thinking they're just always going to be a trader, right? 50 years old, they're going to be a trader. But, you know, okay, that's cool to say when you're 20, right? And you live at home still, or maybe you've just moved out, or maybe you do live in a student accommodation, or maybe you do have a flat of your own, but you haven't been married yet. You haven't got kids yet. Or you haven't, maybe you don't do those things. Not everyone wants to, that's fine. But you haven't built another business yet. Right?
True. Yeah.
There will be, again, the anomalies of people, the unique people who just trade for the rest of their life. That's all they do. And fair play to them, right? Fair play to them. And they'll probably make a lot of money still, no problem. But the reality being that trading will always be a risky business. If you look at trading versus a lot of other businesses, yes, the uncapped potential is there. There's no boss, there's no hours, there's all this freedom. But with all those positives, there's a negative, which is the risk element. It's one of the riskiest things you will ever do. In terms of investment, it's the riskiest one. Because all it takes is one bad day. It doesn't matter if you're made 10 billion. You can lose that 10 billion in one single day. Yeah. Right? So it's always going to be risky. That's why you invest in other areas. You invest in less risky assets and investments. And then again, some of those might take your time. And by the time you're 40, maybe you don't want to get up at 6:30 still in the morning and be sharp and be on it and meditate and make sure that you're in the zone to be able to risk some capital, to make your money. When in reality, you might even have a couple million invested making 200, 300K a year passively without doing anything. Mm-hmm. And therefore, you might even lose the fire to trade anymore and put that risk on the line. Yeah. I'm not saying that that's the right way to go or not. I'm just saying that don't get fixated on this idea that that's all you're going to do. Yeah, love it. And say, I'll do this as long as I want to. That's the main bit, want to. Because there might come a time where you've made enough from trading, invested enough, or doing other things, or have a family, or whatever, where you actually I don't want to risk every single day and have this turmoil slightly. So it's not like you're always going to be in this battle every single day. But you're still going to have to turn up, be efficient, and still risk every single day. And be willing to accept that risk every single day. And when you're handling all these different things, changes will be made. Maybe you still trade, but you do position trading. True. Or swing trading, right? Or maybe you just don't trade at all. Yeah.
Or just the best days of the week, a couple of days per week.
Or it could be like a month, over that longer time, like 10, 20 years, you might have realized 2 months of the year are my best months. I'll just trade those 2 months, or again, you just don't trade. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's a negative sort of mindset or viewpoint of if you don't trade or you don't want to trade forever until you die, then you're not a real trader. But the reality is look, again, I have one kid, and she's not even into her teenage years yet or anything near that. So I can't imagine that. Don't get me wrong, obviously when they're teenagers, it's not like they want to hang around with you, but time and stuff, that's one kid. Imagine if you had more than one kid. Imagine you have, again, businesses. So you're just trading right now, but you have a business that you are passionate about as well. That takes your time.
Yeah, of course.
What happens then, right? What do you just say? No, forget that business. Trade it. Of course. You have to be realistic in that sense.
Yeah.
You did 52 podcasts.
Right now, right now that's released. Now. 52.
And is there a very good lesson that you got from a podcast that you want to share?
What do you mean? Is in terms of what I've learned from the guests?
Something you learned, an insight, something that...
like a repeat lesson, yeah.
A powerful message that you heard and you want to share.
I think so there are some beautiful. Sorry.
I'm asking because I learn a lot from podcasts. Every time I learn a lot of things, and there are a lot of things that I think that worth repeating and worth sharing. So that's why I was asking.
No, 100%. So that's a big reason why I enjoy doing them. Is because I learn so much. It's a kind of selfish reason. Because you get to learn so much yourself from all these people that you may have even looked up to. So like Mark, I've followed Mark years ago. I've seen Blackwatch's page for a long time. Swaggy, obviously, I've been in conversations with him and known him for a long time. Austin Silver, I saw his page a long time ago. So now I'm sitting down with these same very people that I used to watch or I used to come across. And it's inspiring, and obviously it's my chance to learn and maybe even ask questions that I would have wanted to ask back then.
Yeah.
So it's a great question, and a lot of the stuff we've talked about, so far we have mentioned, Mark and Ibi, and these are all things that I learned. But the most recent one, or correlating factors in terms of success as a trader, a lot of them are your solitude is a big one. So taking yourself away from communities, away from social media, and just focusing on you now. So when you have all the knowledge and the experience, etc., now just go away and make it work for you. Yeah. Spend that time in solitude. And so many of them have said the same thing. And that's what I love about the podcast. We're collecting data,
Yeah, right.
Every single one of them has gone through hardship. Every single one without fail. And every single one without fail has said that the hardship is what was necessary for them to grow. In terms of prop firm challenges and consistency, they all say very similar things in terms of your risk management, making sure it works for you, and just being consistent in your daily habits, right? And who you are more than anything. But more recently, with Elliot Surge, something that was literally I was speaking on a webinar yesterday about, and I think I did a voice note on as well, is that I liked what he said in terms of life is like a war. right? You have to treat it like a battlefield. So like back in the day, probably still to this day, if you were to go to battle, you would have like, you know, the battlefield on a table in front of you, and you'd have your pieces that are your men and your fortresses and your barricades. So then you're looking at this, you know, this battlefield, and essentially this is your life, or let's say trading. Your trading is this, you're marking it out and presenting it like this battlefield, so you know where you need to defend, right? Where's weak? Where are my weaknesses? Right? You're putting all your cards on the table. You're saying, where are my weaknesses in trading? Is it my psychology? Is it my technical ability? Is it a certain aspect of my technical ability? Is it my trade management? Where do I need to defend and improve and fortify to make it stronger, so that if I get attacked, you know, by the market essentially, I won't fail and lose this battle, right? Same on the strength side. Where are my strengths, right? Where are my soldiers the strongest? Where can we attack and win and claim victory, right? So it might be that your mindset is the strongest thing, or maybe it's your particular technical ability or particular setup, right? That is your best. So you're laying all your cards out on the table and strategically thinking of how you can improve, where you're weak, so you can be mindful of where you're weak and try and protect where you're weak. And it's that same like mindset as well in battle, where it's like you could lose the battle but not the war, you know. So you might lose one day, but that's not the war. The war continues, you know. So like I really love that analogy, you know, because I've never really heard anyone say it in that way. So yeah, I really love that one. I'm trying to think if there's anything else, you know. Not really. One's more of a selfish one. Like I told my story in regards on, like, I had my friend on, Thomas Males. It was part 3. We did a 3-part series because he was from Australia, so I wouldn't really get to see him again. And he was talking about his depression, you know, and I was talking about when I went through depression when I was younger, and I got to share the sort of story of why I went through that depression, and, you know, the analogy in my life in terms of like, remember who you are, from The Lion King. So The Lion King is like the story of my life, you know. So like in The Lion King, Mufasa is killed by his brother Scar. In my life, my dad was killed by his brother-in-law, right? So then when I'm watching this movie as a kid, this cartoon, I'm like resonating fully. It's like, this is my life in a cartoon form. But there's a moment where he obviously, you know, he's lost, he's older and he's lost. He doesn't know where his place in the world. He's just kind of chilling out with people in the forest and just relaxing all day. And similar, if you think about it, pure reflection of my life, because that was me, like smoking weed, just chilling and just not really having focus or drive. And it's the same principle. When I went through this depression, I was the same thoughts going through my head, like, who are you? You don't know your dad. You didn't grow up with your dad. Who are you? Right? Who are you as a person? You don't know who you are. How can you be a man if you don't know who you are? Right? So then that movie scene, when I'd watch it, would literally bring me to tears, because I'm seeing this same exact scenario playing out in like cartoon form, where his dad turns up in the clouds and is like, remember who you are, you know. You've forgotten me, so you've forgotten who you are, right? So take your place in the circle of life, etc. So, you know, I used to watch that. I used to watch other sort of scenes in regards to like father-son relationships and stuff, and that was where my depression stemmed from. And then, you know, when I changed that narrative in my mind of like, you can't play victim to this circumstance that was outside of your control. You know, you didn't control what happened there, right? And it doesn't matter if you weren't taught by a man, or you don't know who your father was in that sense, you get to define, you know who he was in terms of the legacy. And this is where I learned legacy from, because obviously he wasn't, you could say successful in the sense that he wasn't nothing, but he wasn't rich and he wasn't famous or anything. But yet anyone who I speak to, even to this day, if they knew who he was, they'd be like, he was a great person, you know, such an amazing person, very patient, very kind, very loving. And that's legacy, you know. So like someone who was no one essentially, but yet we're talking, I don't know, 23 years on now. Even to this day, if someone knew him and you said, oh, you know, what did you think? Or not even that, they would, if they knew I was his son, they would say, oh, your dad was this and that. And then that's where I learned the power of legacy, because like, this is someone who's essentially a no one. And yet to this day, 23 years on, random people who knew him, even just for a moment, not even like as a close friend, will say these kind words. And that's what matters most. So that's where my essence of like giving into this victim mentality and trying to think of, you know, why is this bad? Why this negative, right? Instead, it's like, look at the positive from that message in terms of the legacy. So then that's why I put a lot of focus on legacy throughout the rest of my life from that point on. And that's where the podcast comes from. That's where so that's more of a selfish one in terms of what I've learned. But that was always a powerful story that I always wanted to share. And I was grateful to I guess the audience, if you will, and everyone who supported the channel to allow me to get to a point where I could share that on that platform, even though it was my own platform in that sense.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was interesting.
Nice, amazing. Would you say that fate helped you in your process, in your journey?
You could say so in a sense. It was more like fate might have put certain challenges in the way, certain hurdles.
Fate in yourself, fate in religion,
Yeah,
anything.
no, 100%. Like something happened where there's like a knock-on effect, where there's a chain of events of challenges, whether it's something that is challenging you to make certain decisions, so such as that one, like the depression, certain decisions such as the addiction, certain decisions as such as testing your own, trusting your own word, so you saying I'm going to be successful, but then what are your actions doing, So in a certain sense, yes. And I think there's certain things that in life that pushes you, one of them being having some form of partner, whether you're married or not. I think having some sort of long-term partner that you are responsible for, or at least have that unity with, I think is very powerful. I think it creates such a sense of responsibility that you can't replicate. I think having a child is another one. That again, a sense of responsibility that you can't replicate. I think having accountability in terms of whether it's social media or trying to be a leader also creates a sense of responsibility that you can't replicate. And I think these things, you could say, are you testing fate because you're putting yourself in those situations. Sometimes they can be a surprise, of course, and you find yourself in those situations, and then it's your chance to prove yourself. You know, people find themselves, as parents, mothers and fathers, and they don't make the right choices sometimes, and that's fine because they might make the wrong choices at first and make the right choices later because they have to learn from the hardship. So no one's judging. There's no right or wrong, and there's no one who could judge any other person. Surely, yes, there are evil people in the world, and people who make just purely the bad decisions and have the wrong mindset. Again, I would say maybe the anomaly, but there are just people who make mistakes, and I'm not perfect. I'm not the best husband or wife. I'm definitely not the best wife, I tell you that. But I'm not the best husband or best father, I'm not the best in the world. I'm not perfect in any means. I'm not even the best podcaster, and that's the humbling thing, like you always can improve and be better. It's not even podcasting. I know I'm good. I know that I've done amazing things and I've been a visionary and tried to change stuff. But I also know there's someone out there right now who is holding themselves back, who's better than me. Does that make sense? Yeah. Right? So I know there's someone out there right now who's better than all of us at podcasting, who's going to take over if they take action. Yeah. And right now, fate has tried to give them opportunities and they're saying no. Right? Yeah. So if they keep saying no, they will never see their true potential. But when they say yes, they will surpass all of us. And it'll be a beautiful thing because it'll be a story we'll get to hear. Maybe we'll have them on our podcast, for example, and say, like, how did you do it? And then they'll tell that story. Like, I was holding myself back and I saw you and I saw this person, or I finally took action and then now I'm here. And we'll understand that person could have very easily just been no one. Could have just faded away and never saw their true potential, because if they just continued to be like, oh, what about what other people think? Or, I might need a studio, or well, like me, like same thing. True. So, there's someone out there right now watching who keeps saying to themselves, like, and they're truly passionate about it, first of all, and not just the idea of it, or I saw Riz do it and maybe I should do that. No. If they, like, for me, it was like I came across Joe Rogan before training. I came across Joe Rogan and I watched an episode with him and Russell Brand, which is like a UK comedian, very insightful guy, used to be an addict, but very insightful. And they just talked about a topic, perception. How like you can perceive different, the same thing. So me looking at your top, I might say that's red, but he might look at it and say that's like a bright pink, and no one's right or wrong in the terms that his perception is showing him that, and my perception is showing me this. And that just changed my perspective. Like, it almost changed my life in a sense, because I'd never thought about it in that way, which is a bit weird, I feel like now, because I know it and it kind of seems obvious. But I've seen it before where I'll be, even if I'm looking at you right now, in this light, I might see you in the certain, like I might see certain facial features. All it takes is for you to turn your head or the light to change, and suddenly now I'm seeing the same person but in a whole different way. Right. So that's just my own perception changing, right? Let alone someone else's, and understanding that people have different perceptions, of the same event or the same book. And that's why, like, people talk about masterminding being so powerful. Me and you could read the same chapter of a book but take 5 different lessons from it. But if we're able to share that, now suddenly we've gotten 2 different perspectives on the same material, and now we've just doubled up our learning, So, The podcast is incredible. You learn so much. I've learned so much. It's really shifted my lifestyle. Not my lifestyle, sorry, but my life. Even my lifestyle, because I'm fucking traveling everywhere now. You know, but it's been incredible, you know, and it's a blessing. And I'm glad I took the action, because I help. Imagine where I would have been if I did 4 years ago. You know, when I wanted to. 5 years ago when I wanted to. Sorry, no, not even that long. 7 years ago when I wanted to. And that was when Joe Rogan was on like episode, I don't know, like 200-300. Now he's on like 2,000 or something. You know? So I'm 52 episodes in, but I could have been 500 episodes in. You know, so all I'd say to anyone out there is, if you are truly passionate about podcasting, the art of conversation, you know, and you love conversations, and you think you can ask the right questions and have the right conversations, just do it. Don't stop, right? Just do it from your Zoom on your laptop. Do it. Hire a studio. Borrow equipment. Use the cheapest thing necessary, but just start, and then it will build from there. Because if you are truly passionate about it, you will be good at it. Honestly.
Nice, man. So much inspiration. Thank you for dropping so much value in this podcast. I really enjoyed actually just listening to what you had to share.
Me too. A lot.
It was great.
I appreciate it. And I thank you for having me again. Thank you for flying me out. I don't want people to think that I flew myself out here. You guys message me and say, come out to Gran Canary, right?
Here, Fuerteventura. But
here, yeah. I can't say that. I can't say it. We'll keep it short and sweet. But yeah, these guys flew me out here. It's really nice. We went out for lunch, went out for driven around. We saw the golf course. Maybe I'll get into golf one day. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
But beautiful setup here, beautiful beach behind us as well. So appreciate you bringing me out here, sending me home as well. And I'm excited to see the feedback and see it drop.
I'm excited as well. Thank you so much for coming. It was amazing.